All right, what is up? This is the first episode on the YouTube channel that I am currently naming Jordan Elliott Sports. I am maybe going to honor the Splash Cousin legacy and call it Splash Cousin Sports. The name is still TBD, but for now, this is the first episode of Jordan Elliott Sports. And I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend. You guys know him as Andrew Pasquini, co-host of the Sprint Right Option podcast. My main goal with this is to have a lot of fun while we're talking sports and hanging out, 49ers stuff. We'll dive into some other things as well, depending on the day, depending on the topic. But I could not think of a better person to bring on with me to get this started, to cultivate the vibe that I'm really hoping to put out there than Andrew Pasquini. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and this is a real honor. This is I'm going to be honest. I do the Sprint Right Option podcast twice a week. I've gotten to a point of it where I don't really get nervous for it anymore. I had a whole conversation with my girlfriend last night. Like, I am legitimately nervous because this is your YouTube channel. This is the first episode, and like I was telling you before, I know all the names you have access to. You're a popular guy, Jordan. And you picked Andrew Pasquini, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I really do. It's really an honor. This is a real honor to be the first guest on the Jordan Elliott Sports Network. I love it. It makes me happy.
I did. And I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody. I see Matt's in here. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you guys like and subscribe, I'm just getting this started, so any help is greatly appreciated. I know my guy Eric's in here. Thank you so much. Justin, Dawson, Peyton, Shardall. Thank you guys all for coming by. Like I said, this is all about having fun. So if you guys are here, if there's stuff you want to talk about in the comments, if there's stuff that you guys want to bring up, please let me know. I want to involve you guys as much as possible while we get this going. I'm still new to this. I have a lot to learn from legends like Andrew and from legends like some of these fellows in the comments who have been doing this much longer than myself. So let's jump right into it. It's been quite a busy offseason for the NFL. There's players moving around all over the place. Tyreek Hill just got sent to Miami today. Mike McDaniel's actually had quite a very eventful 36 hours or so. I think, Toronto Armstead was yesterday. Yeah, so he's getting all these new toys to play with in Miami. He's living life. He's on South Beach eating burgers with Deebo Samuel. Life's good for him. But, for the 49ers, it's been a little less eventful. But at the same time, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, Andrew. So where do you stand right now? What's your vibe with how the 49ers offseason has gone so far?
Well, I think obvious at the top, the most concerning thing is Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster. I think that was the one move everybody's been waiting for. But I'm not in the camp of, this offseason's been bad because Jimmy Garoppolo is still here. I think the Niners were really at a point where they just needed to address some key spots. Cornerback being one, hey, they addressed that. Defensive tackle depth, hey, they addressed that. I think the only thing they really haven't addressed yet is that right guard position, which they probably need to address, because I like Daniel Brunskill. I do. I think he's a solid player. He's just not the kind of guy I want to be playing every down, because they're unless it's Aaron Donald, he's kind of okay, right? Which is still my favorite running gag on 49ers Twitter is the Brunskill owns Aaron Donald thing. They still haven't really addressed safety. I know they got George Odom. That feels more like a special teams move than an every down safety type. So do I think this offseason has been bad for the Niners? No, I don't think so. Could it be better at this point? Especially when you compare it to just the amount of madness that has happened in this offseason. Yeah, the Niners absolutely could be doing more. But were they ever at a point where they needed to do more? No, I don't think so. Because outside of J.C. Jackson and Chandler Jones, who have they really lost out on? I think you can make the argument Raheem Mostert, they lost out on him. Maybe DJ Jones, but they weren't going to pay that price for DJ Jones. Were they going to pay the price that the Jets paid for Laken Tomlinson? I don't think so. The Niners haven't lost out on anybody, in my opinion, other than J.C. Jackson and Chandler Jones. They always seem to like to sign the guys that nobody's talking about. Looking at Charvarius Ward. Nobody was talking about Charvarius Ward to the Niners until Charvarius Ward went to the Niners. So I understand the fans wanting, and I'm a fan too. I don't know why I say the fans like I'm not a fan. I am a fan too. I understand fans wanting the higher names, the big names like Tyrann Mathieu, who's still available. That's just not how the Niners operate, and that's just, it is what it is. I'm very excited to see what Charvarius Ward can do and what Hassan Ridgeway can do. So I guess the long way of saying, no, I'm not panicking. I won't panic until maybe June and Jimmy Garoppolo is still here. Maybe then we could have that whole conversation. I think what the Niners have done this offseason has been fine.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And before I go into why, again, I want to shout everybody out. JKBG is the comment goat from what I've seen from the lives I've been a part of. So it's an absolute honor to have him here on my first live ever. Stivers 209, what's going on, dude? Thank you for coming in. D's nuts, what's happening, man? Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you. Jay, Dylan, I know Ben's in here too. Steph the GOAT. Kyle B. I just feel so loved and supported right now. So thank you guys all for coming by. And yeah, I agree with you, Andrew. This is my whole thinking, right? Because the 49ers were 3 plays away from the Super, or sorry, not 3 plays, 3 points. You could argue 3 plays too, maybe 1 play, maybe 10, who knows? That's for, Rich Madrid and the tape grinders to watch and let us know. But they're 3 points away from the Super Bowl, right? So you're 3 points away from the Super Bowl with the roster that you have. And I understand that, there's going to be turnover every season. That's something I've preached a bunch. Generally, you're going to lose about a third of your roster on a given year. Guys price themselves out. Some guys, unfortunately, you're just not going to be good enough for what you're hoping to do going forward. You're going to look to upgrade. So my thinking is if the 49ers can retain a lot of their own core, they're still in a pretty good spot. Obviously, you can't expect to, win on a special teams play in Green Bay every year in the playoffs. You can't, bank on getting by the way they did in this past postseason. So I'm not saying that you should look to replicate that exact same formula, but I do think like bringing in their own players is a solid move at this point. Like I was saying that they need to bring in a vet, and the first guy that I was saying before bringing in somebody from the outside was Jeff Wilson Jr. They went and they did that today. Jeff Wilson announced he'll be back, and I think that is great for that running back room. I don't think we ever saw Jeff Wilson near 100% last year, and if we go back to when we did see him at 100%, the last time I really remember him operating at that level, he scored 3 touchdowns in New England a couple years ago. So I'm really excited about that. Guys like Dante Johnson, hey, I get it. Dante Johnson is this long-running joke for 49ers fans. He gets cut and released and brought back a bunch of times. If you go back to last season, Dante Johnson in that Week 18 game where the 49ers had to win. Everybody talks about that last drive with Jimmy and the interception by Emery Thomas, and a lot of great things happened in that game. But what never gets talked about, in my opinion, is the fact that Dante Johnson had to come in, fill in at slot corner, and then when the 49ers were so thin at safety with nobody else left to play it, had to move back and play safety in that same game. And he did a good job doing it, too. It's not like he was just there and he was, filling in, getting burnt, but he was playing the position. No, he did a very good job at that. So yeah, I put it out on Twitter earlier, and I firmly believe this. Like, without Dante Johnson, I don't think the 49ers make the playoffs last year. And I think having a guy like that on an extremely affordable one-year deal, a guy from my experience with players who are on that 49er secondary, they love Dante Johnson. Mm-hmm. They love everything he's about. They love having him as a teammate. To me, it's a very no-lose proposition because at the end of the day, hey, as much as I like Dante Johnson and his versatility, with a guy like that, if you're so good in training camp and you have so many, good players at that position in that secondary, you can move on with very minimal, repercussions when it comes to financial stuff, cap hit, whatever, dead cap. Like it's a very low risk, decently, I won't say high reward. I'm not going to, go that far, but we saw Dante Johnson play a pivotal role. And, I just have to throw it out there. Dante Johnson was the last guy to cover Devontae Adams on his very last route in a Green Bay Packers uniform. So I'm just throwing it out there that Dante Johnson potentially ended Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in Green Bay Packers history. He was the last man to shadow that man on the other side of the field. So just throwing it out there. I'm not confirming or denying, but Dante Johnson might have ended Devontae Adams' Green Bay Packer career. So moving off that, like the big thing is still Jimmy, right? Like we have to talk about it. I'm sick of it. You're sick of it. I get it. But like, what would you do right now if you're the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you think that they need to hang on to him and wait and get something in return? Do you think it's time to just kind of set him free and let him go, do Subway commercials and find another team to play with? Like, where are you standing right now with Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, what's the Andrew Pasquini GM school of thought here?
Well, I think the easiest answer would have just been trade him. Like the rumors of the 2 second-round picks, like why was that not good enough? I'm a little confused by that. But at the point they're at, I feel like the easiest answer, because there's no starting jobs. That's kind of the issue, is nobody's going to trade for a $25 million quarterback to be the backup. To me, the easiest answer is just cut your losses. Say, because what is it? It's $18 million they save if they cut him. Because my biggest worry is if he is on this roster come September, and I don't think he is. What scares me the most is if you have Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo in September, you're almost in a position where like you have to start Jimmy Garoppolo, because it's not that Garoppolo's better than Trey Lance. I don't know if he's better yet. We don't know who's better than who yet, because we don't know what Lance is. I just have a hard time believing that you're going to have a $27 million player just sitting on the bench. And you've kind of shoehorned yourself into a spot where you're going to have to play Jimmy Garoppolo over the guy that you've said is going to be the 2022 starter the second he got drafted. So that's the tricky position they're in. They're really at a point where if they want to trade him, they're going to have to wait until camps open and OTAs open and preseason starts, and just kind of hope that, not hope, I don't want to say hope because context is bad, but injuries happen and maybe a team they lose their starting quarterback and now a job opens up. That's the only way I could see the Niners making that trade at this point, unless they do the thing that not a lot of people want them to do and make the phone call up north to Seattle and say, listen, man, we're just trying to get rid of him. You guys maybe need a quarterback. We don't know how you feel about Drew Lock. What do you want to offer, and take it? I don't think that's going to happen. So really the Niners are in a position where it's either you're going to run with Jimmy Garoppolo again, which is going to piss off a lot of fans. I don't know if you know this, Jordan, but Jimmy Garoppolo is a very polarizing figure on 49ers Twitter. And if he's on this roster come September, I don't know how you bench him just because of the money you're paying him. So it's either you cut him or you start him at this point. And I don't think anybody wants to see him start. And I don't even think, like, just the mental idea of Jimmy Garoppolo, the way he ended his last press conference with the Niners saying like, hey, this was fun, it was cool, and all that stuff. I don't see the mentality of him being able to start again for the Niners. So it's really, they're probably just going to have to cut him unless somebody gets hurt in between now and then. So that's really where the Niners have put themselves in. And it's unfortunate because they've told us for the past 2 years that, like, hey, this is probably the road's ending. And to have him be back, it'd just be such a bad look on this franchise, really.
So I have an interesting take with this, right? And it's always interesting. Like, I'm of the belief, like, I don't like getting into other people's pockets or telling other people how to spend their money, how to make their money. That's just a rule I like to live by. But if I can offer my opinion on something where it's not directly coming out of my pocket, like, if there can be an exception made here, right, for this, what I'm about to say. If I'm the 49ers, I eat that $7.5 million injury guarantee. I think of it as a parting gift. I think of it as a, hey, you know what? Like, you got us to 2 NFC championship games. We made quite a lot of money merchandising and, profiting off of you being our franchise quarterback for the better part of 5 seasons. And here's why. To me, and again, it's not my money. $7.5 million is a lot of money. I want to make that very clear, that I'm not just like, oh, go spend $7.5. Like, hey, I get it. But this is how I'm looking at things, right? If I'm the 49ers, my greatest asset right now is Trey Lance. Nick Bosa is a great player. Deebo Samuel's a great player. Fred Warner's a great player. None of them play the quarterback position. And when you make the investment that you made into Trey Lance and somebody who is that young and that gifted and has all this potential, you need to do everything possible to put them in a position to succeed. And that people will talk about building the offensive line, drafting skill position guys. But to me, it's more than that. It's cultivating an environment where you really feel like you're the guy and you have the support and the belief in yourself from your coaches, your GM, your teammates. And to me, this is what releasing Jimmy Garoppolo does. If you release Jimmy Garoppolo, you can spin this as, hey, we're giving him a chance. The trade market wasn't what we thought it was. The surgery complicated things. You give Jimmy Garoppolo a chance to go sign somewhere else. You can spin this as, hey, we wanted to reward him by letting him choose his own place. There's a million different ways you could spin that into positive PR to make yourself look like the good guy. And at the end of the day, hey, there's maybe not like a draft pick or a level of compensation that comes with good PR, but it's still valuable and it still holds some sort of, positive outcome in all of this. And the other thing you do is you send a very clear message to Trey Lance, to the locker room, to the fan base, to everybody else. This is our guy. We moved mountains to go get this guy last season, and we believe he's the guy going forward. And so my whole thinking is that this $7.5 million, and again, it's not my money. If I had to pay the $7.5 million, I probably wouldn't be saying this. I don't. So this is why it's my opinion. that $7.5 million to me from the outside looking in isn't worth the headache that's going to come with having Jimmy on this team through camp. And they probably don't care, and he probably will stay on the team. I want to make that very clear that I understand that's probably what's going to happen. They're probably going to wait until they can either recoup that money or trade him and get draft capital in return. If I'm putting my general manager hat on and I'm running things, I'm looking at this as the negatives aren't worth the positives of whatever day 3 draft pick you might get or the money you might get back. To me, it's much more valuable to send a message to Trey Lance that this is your time. This is your team going forward. We're handing you the keys right now. Like, it's probably a terrible analogy, but to me, it's kind of like, you know, if you're somebody were like, let's say your parents got you a car or something when you're 16, right? And you're like, you're excited. You got your license. You're finally ready to go out into the world. But you're like big brother who is supposed to be going off to college can come and take the keys from you at any moment. You know what I mean? Like, probably a terrible analogy. I'm not great with analogies, but it's like at a certain point, like, give Trey Lance the keys and let him know he's the guy, right? Like, let him know that this is his time and let the fan base, the media, like everybody else. To me, the 49ers, they do very well for themselves. All right. Yes. Again, I understand $7.5 million, a lot of money. What is the cost of doing this whole quarterback circus again? For me, I would pay $20 million to not have to deal with this headache anymore. Again, I'm not Jed York. I'm not writing those checks, but dude, it's time to just clean slate for everybody all around. And there's so many ways you can spin that. So I'm curious what you have to say about that. I don't want to keep spinning my tires and repeating myself, but I think that it's time, man.
And you make a great point with the Trey Lance thing, because like it's the reason, like I feel like it gets lost in 49ers Twitter that, like, yeah, they should have started Trey Lance. They should have Chicago. They should have started him. They should have made the move and just gone from there. And I think the thing with Kyle Shanahan, and it's kind of a tie-in to Dante Johnson, right? Trust is huge. Like that idea of the Shanahan doghouse, and like, whether or not we overplay it or not, there is a level of it where, you know, if he loses that trust, hey, Matt Breida, hey, Dante Pettis, you're really not gonna be the guy anymore. You're not gonna get the snaps. You're not gonna get the playing time. The reason Kyle Shanahan started Jimmy Garoppolo for the entire season when he could was you knew what you were getting out of Jimmy Garoppolo. It wasn't the best, but you could win with it. And you still don't know what you're getting out of Trey Lance. Whether we could talk about, hey, his player comp is Warren Moon. We could talk about that all day, right? But we don't know that until we find out. And I think a large part why the Niners were successful last year is because of that trust in Jimmy Garoppolo and him keep on going back to him and keep going back to him. And, you know, do you maybe make the Super Bowl against the Rams, the Trey Lance starts? I don't know. And that's where your point of, like, you can't have Trey Lance looking over his shoulder, because Trey Lance knows how much Jimmy Garoppolo is trusted by Kyle Shanahan. The whole locker room knows how much how much Kyle Shanahan trusts Jimmy Garoppolo. And you can't put him in a situation where Trey Lance makes one bad throw in a practice and he turns around and he sees Jimmy Garoppolo warming up, making throws and all that. That is not a situation you want to put a 22-year-old quarterback, or however old he is now. I think he was 21 when he got drafted. So yeah, you make a great point with that. You can't put any doubt in this kid's mind that, oh, if I mess up, like, I know he's got that guy behind me he trusts. And I think that's the largest part about this. I think where the miscommunication happened with this trade is John Lynch or Adam Peters or Kyle Shanahan, whoever makes the decision on the value of these trades, is they rightfully so were looking at Jimmy Garoppolo as an asset to trade, as, hey, we got this quarterback. He's a proven winner. Whether or not he's good enough to actually be that winner we give him credit for, that's for you to find out. We know we can win with him. So we're trying to trade him to get the value of the talent that we believe he is, where realistically the value in Jimmy Garoppolo was that $25 million cap savings. And now maybe you can get a Chandler Jones. Maybe you can overpay to get that JC Jackson. And I don't think the Niners front office ever looked at it like that. And I think that's kind of where the issue is, okay, let's say they got that offer of 2 second-round picks. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But for them to say, no, we're not taking that, they had to believe that the value was the player, where realistically for the 49ers, the value was just saving that money and just getting what you can get. And I know it's not equivalent because the Falcons are having to eat $40 million in cap space, but it seems like they pretty much just took what they could get. for Matt Ryan, which was a third-round pick, which also, in a way, kind of kills the 49ers' value they had for Garoppolo. Because if Matt Ryan, and as I said, the contract makes this way more complicated. If Matt Ryan's getting a third-round pick, there's no world where Jimmy Garoppolo should fetch 2 seconds because Matt Ryan's a better quarterback, and that's what it is. Matt Ryan wasn't talked about. Everybody talked about Jimmy Garoppolo being the best option for the Colts because that's before we knew Matt Ryan was available. And it's weird how the second Matt Ryan becomes available, the Colts make that move. So the Niners really, really messed this one up. And it's okay. It happens. A lot of teams mess up a lot of things. It happens. It's just the mess ups don't happen with franchise quarterbacks that are kind of holding you back from being real players in free agency. So that's why I do say I don't disagree with any moves the Niners have made. But the big one is they probably needed to get rid of Garoppolo the second they could. And now we're in a situation where we can talk about Garoppolo being here for camp, and it's probably not the situation that needed to happen.
So I actually have a different take on it. Real quick, I wanted to say thank you to Brandon. Thank you so much for everybody for coming to watch. This is just the first of many. I'm still getting the hang of doing this whole YouTube thing, and I'm very happy that you're all here, tuning in, watching, giving us stuff to talk about from the comments. I'm happy to have Andrew here. I actually have a different outlook on this. And, this organization isn't perfect. They have made a lot of moves I disagree with. First and foremost, I don't know how anybody in their right mind ever says no to Tom Brady. We can talk about that for hours another time. So there's plenty of things with this organization that they've done in recent years where I'm like, how did this happen? But there's also a lot of stuff that they've done where I'm like, okay, like they've done a good job drafting, done a good job scouting. They've done a good job with a lot of these contracts. They came pretty close to winning the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they came really close to going to another Super Bowl this year. So I try to look at things through a lens of like a little bit more understanding. I don't want to say that I'm just like, making excuses for them, but this is my whole thinking, right? Who could have predicted that Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Mariota, Mayfield's on the move now, like all these quarterbacks moving, right? All of this movement, Devontae Adams getting traded, Khalil Mack getting traded. Like, I don't think anybody, and maybe in league circles it's a little different. They might have had some idea, but I don't think anybody saw this amount of movement, especially at the quarterback position. Who knows what people knew about Tom Brady coming back? I think that's another thing that doesn't get talked about enough because that took another not just landing spot off for Jimmy Garoppolo, but a landing spot for another quarterback. Because I don't think there's any way they would have rolled with Kyle Trask this season. No. Tampa Bay would have had to get somebody. So my whole thinking is that they didn't necessarily misinterpret Jimmy's value. And there's a good chance they could have, right? Like they always talk about his qualities and winning and this and that. And other teams might not value him the same way. But I don't think it's nearly as much as the 49ers think that Jimmy's this like coveted commodity that other teams aren't mirroring. I think it's more so they expected the demand to be higher because there would be less available quarterbacks, which is what I assumed as well going into this offseason. I didn't think there would be this, abundance of quarterback movement and this just wild carousel of quarterbacks moving all over the place. So I can't fault the 49ers for not thinking that, Russell Wilson would go to Denver or that, Matt Ryan would go to Indy. I don't think anybody thought Matt Ryan was getting traded with that cap hit. So my whole thinking is basically that the 49ers didn't do a good enough job mapping out every single scenario where, hey, maybe every quarterback in the league is on the move. Like, you kind of would like to think that there's like an A to Z plan where you have all your bases covered. But I think it's much more that they just got caught off guard by the lack of landing spots rather than they're just like stuck on their ways and like, we want 2 seconds for Jimmy and we're not moving him for anything else. Because I think it's realistic to expect there's no chance they're going to get that. And I don't think they're, naive enough to believe that themselves. This is where it gets interesting for me, right? Is I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt up until now because, again, I think that there was an unprecedented amount of transactions with big name players and quarterbacks in particular. So, hey, it caught us all off guard. I get it. So what happened to this point, I can give them a pass on. What I can't give them a pass on is if this drags out an extra 5 months, you get the added stress of a QB controversy. You get the added unnecessary drama that comes with all the baggage of having a quarterback controversy, and you don't get a significant return for him by training camp, or he stays on the roster, or he I don't even want to say it, or he starts week 1, and then you're just sitting in this situation where every time the guy throws an incomplete pass, you're going to have people calling for his job. You're going to have all these national media people talking about how, well, if Jimmy's on the field for year 2, like clearly they missed on Trey Lance. It just creates so much unneeded stress that they could very easily avoid by just cutting the dude loose and moving on. So I will reserve my criticism for how the next 6 weeks play out or so. I think until OTAs and minicamp and all that stuff ramps up, like, yeah, hey, he can stay on the roster. They can still get deals done. I think that's totally acceptable. But if this persists beyond that, that's where I'm going to have a lot more criticism and be a lot more judgmental of their decision, because I don't think it's good business to sit around and hope that a team gets desperate down the road. Yeah. I think, as somebody who's extremely stubborn themselves, the best thing you can do in life sometimes is acknowledge, hey, I might have gotten this wrong, and cut your losses rather than trying to double down and just hope that something down the line changes. And that's really what it feels like with Jimmy Garoppolo. I forget who it was, so I don't want to be, not giving them credit, but I was on a live with Brad, and it was Brad or Rob, and somebody made a great point that it's kind of like holding on to a stock that's just continuing to fall, hoping that it's just going to just rebound and bounce up when there's not really much, optimism on that front. And it feels like it's time to dump the Jimmy Garoppolo stock. Hey, it happened. It had value at one point. You probably held on a bit too long, but the more and more you continue to hold on, it's kind of like, when you know what it reminds me of, dude? It reminds me of that scene in the Titanic when the guys are all playing the violins and like cellos and stuff as the ship's sinking. Yeah. Like, instead of just like jumping into the lifeboat, they're like content going down with the ship. Like, dude, there's a lifeboat named Trey Lance right there. Get in it, go, and sail into the next season. But instead they're like content, riding this out. So I don't know how you feel about that. Like, again, some people give me a hard time. They're like, oh, stop making excuses for the team. But I'm like, hey, realistically, I don't think any of us saw this coming, but now's their chance to kind of redeem themselves and get some sort of clarity on this whole thing going forward. They can dictate the narrative, is my entire point, right? Like, we don't need to have these like Chris Sims and Peter King and Mike Florio reports about quarterback controversy if it's literally Trey Lance and Nate Sudfeld. No disrespect to Nate Sudfeld. Those reports probably aren't happening if those are the two guys on the roster.
Oh, no, not at all. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. To me, though, like, I also think they had to have some sort of inkling, because, like, even if you take away the Russell Wilson and the Tom Brady's and the Deshaun Watson, like, this was already a decent free agency class as well, right? Because you look at, I know I overblow Jameis Winston a little bit because I'm a Florida State fan, but like, Jameis Winston's a viable starter in the NFL who doesn't cost $26 million. Marcus Mariota can be a viable starter in the NFL who doesn't cost $26 million. Mitch Trubisky, we've heard a lot of things out of Buffalo with him, and there is belief around the league that he can be a viable starter once again, who isn't going to cost $26 million. So the market was already complicated enough with who was going to go where. And some teams like Pittsburgh decided, we'd rather try Trubisky and see what the unknown is for cheaper than know what we're getting with Garoppolo. So I think that's where I get a little lost. But yeah, absolutely, with the trade market, nobody expected. Literally 3 days ago, nobody expected Deshaun Watson to go to the Browns. It was down to the Panthers and the Saints, right? Like, those are the two teams. And all of a sudden it was the Browns, and things got more complicated from there, because that was the worst case for the Niners. Because if it wasn't the Browns, the Baker Mayfield bridge was already burned. And now there's two openings for the Colts and the Browns for Garoppolo to go to. So yeah, no, things definitely got complicated, but I think they could have seen at least a little bit of it with all three of Trubisky and Mariota and Winston being available. So it's just really at that point, like, June 1st is the arbitrary day I've selected for myself. I don't know what June 1st is. It's just the day I picked. Where, like, okay, that's where I really feel like there's going to be issues if Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster, because you can't do this to a 22-year-old who you traded 2 first-round picks to go get. You can't do it. The impression all off season up until when Matt Ryan got traded to the Colts was, this is Trey Lance's job. This is his job. And now, I'm not going to say it's a 50-50 shot, because it's not, but now that there's even, let's go a high estimate of 10% doubt that Jimmy Garoppolo will be here come September, I think that's an issue within itself. And the Niners definitely overplayed their hand with this situation, even with all the unknowns that came up. So I don't know what the Niners do from here, because it doesn't seem like they want to, because like they could make this easy. They can make this easy right now and send a message and say, yeah, Trey Lance is our guy, by eating what you say, the $7.5 million, and just cutting it loose and saying that's okay. We're because to me, and yes, $7.5 million isn't a lot of money, but $7.5 million is a pretty damn good PR run you could make with Trey Lance and say, yeah, no, you're our dude regardless. So
Jed York said too, he said that they would have no problem keeping Jimmy for 2 years. And he said, I'm pretty sure, I apologize if it's not the direct quote. This is all just off the top of the dome here. He said something along the lines of, if $50 million helps our investment in this quarterback, it's an investment worth making, pretty much. So if you're willing to have Jimmy, run out that contract, you should be willing to eat the $7.5 million when it's become clear that that's just the preferred range. And they've made it very clear. And they were willing to pay to keep Jimmy on the roster last year. Again, it's not my money, but I know how much money the 49ers bring in. I know how big of a brand they are. I know how big of a deal they are. And I know that that's something that they could feasibly do. And it's not going to be the end of the world. They're not going to be cash poor because they ate $7.5 million. I just don't see how you can keep dragging this out. I would add too, for the pushback you might get on that is like, oh, well, Trey Lance needs to be mentally tougher and he needs to win out the competition and this and that. Tom Brady is arguably the greatest athlete of all time. And there were reports coming out of New England that he didn't want Jimmy around after being a veteran for over 15 years in the league, where he was like, I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want all the noise. Like, I'm the guy. So if Tom Brady can be placated like that, and again, I don't know for sure if that was true. Those are the reports we heard out of Boston. But if Tom Brady can feel like that, then you should definitely feel like a 22-year-old rookie is in his own right to want to feel wanted and feel like they're not a rookie, sorry, second-year guy. That to me is where it's like there's this weird narrative where it's like, oh, Trey needs to be tough and win this job. Like, you know what? He doesn't really need to win this job, because they made it pretty clear that how they felt about Jimmy when they they mortgaged 3 first-round picks. They obviously had the swap. They traded the other 2 and a third to pretty much say, we don't feel like our quarterback situation is good enough. If they really were that, they did a really good job window dressing it with, the availability and the injuries and all these things. Dude, there are plenty of quarterbacks that could have gone if they really wanted to supplement the backup position and have a guy to just come in and spot start. They wanted a major upgrade, and it's very clear that that's what they swung for when they went and got Trey Lance. So I just think at this point, like, it's not coddling. It's not, Trey Lance isn't being, babied or whatever words I see people throw back. Because I've talked about this a few times, and that's the pushback I always get. It's in the best interest, no matter what line of work you're in, to make your employees feel comfortable and wanted. You're going to get the best results. It doesn't matter if you work at Starbucks or you're in the NFL. If you produce a working environment that's conducive to results and where you're going to get the best performance from somebody, that should always be the end game, right? So to me, it just makes no sense. And if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, to wrap this up, why the hell would I want to come back? I don't want to be here anymore. That's the thing that everybody forgets, because I feel like people are kind of, I get it. People are over Jimmy. They're kind of sick of it. But he's been pretty good about this whole year too. He didn't make a fuss. He didn't request to trade.
He's been fantastic. He's been fantastic. What more could you have asked from a guy who knows his job is being lost? And Jordan, I think you made maybe the scariest point that I hadn't really thought about is yes, that Jed York quote of yeah, we're fine if we have to have him for 2 years, and they're so hesitant to spend the $7.5 million, because I just think that more so points to the fact that if he's on this roster, if they're not going to spend $7.5 million to cut him, there's no way they're going to pay him $26 million to back up Trey Lance. That's just not. That's not how it's going to work. So yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo has handled this perfectly. There's no way he's I don't see any way he's comfortable coming back and saying, yeah, I'm the starter again. Poof, I'm back. I don't see how that's a good direction to go.
Yeah, and I think Raphael makes a great point too, because that's the other thing I've seen. It's Aaron Rodgers sat for 4 years. Brett Favre is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
it's apples and oranges. It's not the same comparison. So I appreciate Raphael pointing that out. Nicholas had a great question as well. Is there any chance that those second round picks were offered by the Seahawks? So this is my whole thinking. if you combine Pete Carroll and Jimmy Garoppolo, that to me screams like, I know it's a 17-game season now, but like 8-8, like just like a 500 team that's like probably not going to push for a Super Bowl title, especially with the rest of that roster. But like they're good enough to like you're not going to be able to tank with Pete Carroll and Jimmy Garoppolo on the same sideline. So to me, if I'm Seattle at this point, you let Bobby Wagner go, you let Russell Wilson, you trade Russell Wilson. You're at the point where you're probably not contending, right? And, this is an unpopular opinion. I got a lot of flack for this back in 2020 when I was like, hey, it's in the 49ers' best interest. They're not making the playoffs. They're much better off getting a better draft pick. Like, that's clearly the end game. And truthfully, that would have been the difference. They would have had a first-round pick this draft if they didn't win that game in, Arizona towards the end of the season. And again, I'm never advocating for players to do that because players will never tank. Yeah. I'm just saying that if we're looking back with the power of hindsight, it's better to have that draft pick if you're not going to be in the playoff race. I'm not ever suggesting that players and coaches should ever build around tanking. But at the same time, too, I do think that there's a level of like, well, if we're not going all in, we might as well evaluate and see what we have. So I don't want to say that the Seahawks are going to not take Jimmy because they're tanking. I think that they're just much better off. Hey, maybe they can salvage a guy like Drew Lock. Maybe they can, pivot to something else where they have a young option they could weigh out. They know what Jimmy Garoppolo is, and I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo going to Seattle pushes them into that contention tier. I think it keeps them. Again, they probably could go 8-9 next year with Jimmy Garoppolo. They could probably beat a good team or two, have a win on the road that blows everybody away and surprises them. I don't doubt that for a second. I just don't see that being a move where they really get that much better. The only thing I will say is that Waldron, the offensive coordinator, they run a very similar offense to what the 49ers run. And, I don't think anybody's going to sit here and argue that the total package that like Jimmy's better than Russ. But when you break down that like Shanahan offense, that heavy play action, a lot of in-breaking routes over the middle, Jimmy was much better at that aspect of the offense than Russell Wilson was. And I think a lot of it really just boils down to the fact that at times, I don't think Russell Wilson sees the middle of the field very well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's 5'10". Like, I think that that's something that gets joked about, and people make all these jokes about him and Kyler, but like it's a real thing. Like, do the math. Like, NFL offensive linemen are 6'5" and this guy's 5'10". Like, so Jimmy, I think, would give them a slight upgrade in a portion of the offense. So that's something to consider there, Nicholas. But I just don't see it being a thing. Like, I definitely don't think it was the 2 seconds, but even if it was for like a 4th or a 5th or something like that, like Jimmy's better than Drew Lock. But like, what is trading assets when you're facing a rebuild really going to do for you by bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, to me, it just doesn't really align with the window is the whole point I'm trying to make.
And especially too, if they trade Metcalf and Lockett, because that's been rumored as well. But listen, man, I'll tell you this. If we wake up tomorrow morning and the news breaks that the Niners traded Jimmy Garoppolo to the Seattle Seahawks, I will write in Sharpie the Seahawks go 2-0 against the Niners next year, just in Sharpie, because there's no way that doesn't happen, right? Like, the Niners aren't beating Jimmy Garoppolo and Pete Carroll because that's how football works, right? There's no way.
How great would that be, too? That would be one of the funnest. Like, I'm sorry, I apologize to 49ers fans, but I would be sitting at my computer typing up stories with glee, just like, oh my, there's no way this just happened. That like the 17-4 in the Russell Wilson era, and then Jimmy the 49ers fans finally get rid of Jimmy, and then he goes to Seattle, and he like.
Could you imagine too? Like, let's say hypothetically it's week 18, the Niners are going up to Seattle, they have to win to make the playoffs, and Jimmy just torches like a 350, 3 touchdown, no interception game to knock the Niners out of the playoffs. Like, you couldn't script it any better than that, right?
You couldn't, and it would be like Hollywood-esque almost, and that's part of the reason why I don't think it's going to happen. It's like too good to be true. But if you're a betting man and Jimmy goes to Seattle, don't bet that Niners money line in either of those games. Don't bet that Niners money line. I promise you don't want to make that mistake. And those could be literally his 2 best games of the year. They could end up finishing like 4-13, and those will be like 2 of his best games of the season.
Oh yeah, no. Like he'll have 25 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Kind of like what we're used to with Jimmy Garoppolo. And like 6 of those 25 touchdowns and none of the interceptions will come against the Niners, because that's just how it'll work, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of like why I'm just like I don't think it's going to happen. And
I think if it's not Carolina at this point, you don't have a trade plan. I don't think Carolina is going to happen.
If you're Carolina too, like this is the only way I can see it happening is if you're Matt Rule and you're like, dude, I'm on the hot. Like his seat is like scorching hot. He more than any other coach, in my opinion, really needs to come out the gates and have a good season. Like I mean, he can't afford to have a slow start, any of that. And for whatever your opinion is about Jimmy Garoppolo, I would love to hear any arguments about why Sam Darnold gives somebody a better chance to win, because I don't think it exists. I don't think you can make the case that Sam Darnold gives you a better chance to win right away. And I think that the Panthers had a top 5 defense, I think that there's a conducive environment because for a fact, the Panthers had a top 5 defense last year. They have a great weapon in DJ Moore. They have a solid run game if McCaffrey can stay healthy. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo there, like they could be a decent team. Like, sure, Tom Brady and the Bucks are probably still going to be favorites in the South. Jameis, I think a lot of people sleep on Jameis, not my this gentleman here to my right or left, whatever it is on the screen. Andrew's a big Jameis believer, but a lot of people sleep on Jameis. The Saints could be a good team, but that South is, it's not like a foregone conclusion that the Panthers just are missing the playoffs next year. Like they could make a run with somebody like Jimmy Garoppolo, and I actually believe that. Like.
Well, even too, if you look at the rest of the NFC, like the Niners have kind of just stumbled into probably a guaranteed top 4 team in the NFC. Because I mean, you look at division by division. You go the Buccaneers, best team in the South, right? You like to think the Packers are the best team in the North, and I'm only giving them that credit because they have Aaron Rodgers and he fixes a lot of things. And I've even made the joke that maybe the Packers will be better now that they've lost Devontae Adams because it'll force Aaron Rodgers to actually look around and see who else is open. The East, like the Cowboys are probably coming out of that division, but like the East is just always the East. And you look at the West, it's really the Niners, Rams, and on a good week, the Cardinals. So with how wide open the NFC is going to be outside, because I think at this point right now, March 23rd, happy birthday, Averly, by the way. And I probably should say my sister as well. Happy birthday, Jody. She's not watching this though. You could probably pencil in the top 4 teams being the Niners, Rams, top 5 teams, Niners, Rams, Cardinals, Buccaneers, Packers. Those last 2 slots can really go to anybody. Like there's a world where Jameis figures it out and has a full season. There's a world where Marcus Mariota figures it out and kind of stumbles the Falcons into the playoffs. The Vikings, I guess the Lions, probably not. The Bears, I'm just listing NFC teams at this point. But it's going to be a really, really weird NFC playoff picture just because of the talent the NFC has lost and really the talent they haven't brought in.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why, going back to like what we started on, that's why I'm not sitting here like panicked at the 49ers, like lack of moves. Like, no. So give you guys a perfect example for, anybody who's not on Twitter. Also, shout out to my guy, Jamal. Thank you for coming by, dude. It's always a pleasure to see you. You're one of my favorites. I don't think it's the end of the world that Bobby Wagner might go to the Rams. And I see people acting as if the sky is falling and that John Lynch is just like idly sitting here as the ship is headed for an iceberg or whatever metaphor you want to use. Like, that's not the hill I'm dying on. If you want to criticize the 49ers front office, dude, there's a lot of avenues you can take to make a valid point and construct a legitimate case as to why you have you feel some type of way about what they've done. Bobby Wagner going to the Rams is not one of them, right? And here's why. 49ers have Fred Warner and they have Azeez Al-Shaair. Dre Greenlaw is a very good player as well. Fred Warner and Azeez Al-Shaair were arguably the best linebacker duo in the league last year when they were both playing at a high level at the same time. Like, that to me is a very solid group. I would love Bobby Wagner. If Bobby Wagner wanted to come and the money was great, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I still think he's playing at a pretty high level. But that's not the hill I'm dying on where I'm like, oh my God, the 49ers haven't been aggressive enough. How dare they let Bobby Wagner go back to his hometown and play for the defending Super Bowl champions? Like, at a certain point, we need to look at the entire picture and understand that as much as I think, hey, I'm from the Bay Area. I got my town shirt on now. Like, I love the Bay Area. I love everything about the 49ers and growing up, going to Candlestick, all that fun stuff. Not everybody's going to feel that way, and not everybody's going to want to come to the 49ers. So I don't think it's a direct indictment on the 49ers front office every single time a player signs somewhere else, and especially when it's like at a position of strength for the 49ers already. So like, think about the fact that like people spent so long talking about the secondary, right? And how they needed a corner so bad, and they go out on pretty much the first day of the tampering period and they get a really good young cornerback who's arguably in his prime and who could end up being one of the better signings of free agency. That's not enough. People are still upset. They need more.
No.
They want more. It wasn't Stephon Gilmore. It wasn't Chandler Jones. It wasn't all like. It's just like at a certain point, like. Yes, you could argue that they mishandled the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. I think that's a totally fair argument to make. You could argue that they could have allocated funds better. They could have done a lot of things differently. But like this whole thing where it's like every time a free agent goes to a different team, it's like this screaming indictment on the 49ers lack of aggressiveness. And it's like, I can't get behind that, man, because at the end of the day, there's no way to directly tie those two things together unless you flat out have one of these free agents come out with like, I wanted the 49ers and they didn't want me. Like, that's why I always come back to the Brady thing. Brady made it really clear he wanted the 49ers. They didn't want him. That shit's inexcusable. I'm sorry. Excuse my language, but like, that's something to me. I will be in a rocking chair, hopefully 50 years from now on my front porch with gray hair, wondering how the San Francisco 49ers said no to Thomas Edward Brady. I will be sitting there on my last breath, wondering how that ever happened. But that doesn't mean that everything they do is bad. And I just think there's a lot of overreaction, and we tend to overlook a lot of the good things that they've done because we're upset that they didn't get a big name that a lot of people are familiar with.
And like the Niners were in on Chandler Jones. Like he picked the Raiders. They had like you're not in on a guy when you can't afford them. Like you're not going to send a contract offer to Chandler Jones and be like, yeah, this is going to take us to like negative $8 million in cap space. We can't afford it, but here's the offer. Right. So like they obviously had to, and we don't know how strong that offer is. Maybe it was a weaker offer compared to the Raiders. But like things like that. And I listen, as I said, I understand everybody wants the big names. You know, the name JC Jackson, you know, the name Stephon Gilmore. I knew the name Charvarius Ward. I had to Google him. I had to look him up. Like nothing against him. That's more of a me thing than anything else. But you know, it really is like everybody just wants the big names, and I don't blame them. But it's just unrealistic. And that's like it is what it is. Like, would Tyrann Mathieu be fantastic? Yeah, he'd be great, but you know, it'd probably be a better move. The least sexy move is just give Jaquiski Tartt $3 million and not give Tyrann Mathieu the $18 million he's going to want, or the AAV, because I know you can easily, you could easily manipulate it and make it cheaper in the first year. There's moves like that I think I would be like, yes, would I absolutely be ecstatic if right now we're recording and Schefter tweeted, hey, the 49ers and safety Tyrann Mathieu have come to an agreement to a contract? Yeah, I'd be happy, but is it going to happen? No, because there's better options the Niners can have for cheaper, especially with this Jimmy Garoppolo situation. You know, like they act like the Niners never make these big moves. Dude, 2 years ago, they literally replaced Joe Staley with Trent Williams. Like, not every team makes moves like that. Like there's teams that have, like, look at the Jaguars. Their big move. Would you rather have your big move be Christian Kirk for 400 years and $900 bajillion or whatever contract they gave him, or would you rather have their big move be Charvarius Ward? I think I'd rather have Charvarius Ward.
I don't know, dude. I'd love to be able to yell Duval whenever I please, though. That's a tough trade-off because
that's fair.
That Teal too. I'm a Sharks. I'm San Jose Sharks guy, so Teal, you win me over with Teal. I'm just saying.
I got a Jaguars hat somewhere around here. I got a lot of hats, so I'll rock the Teal if I need to. I want the Jaguars to be that 1 year where they had Blake Bortles and they were a bad call away from going to the Super Bowl. You can't tell me the Jaguars being good isn't a bad thing for the NFL, because the NFL needs a good Jaguars team.
Yeah, and Jamal's spitting fact real quick. Sorry, Jamal's spitting facts too. So this is the thing: is it's like if we really go team by team, it's not a universal thing, right? But like if you go through, like people are talking about like the Rams, right, and how the Rams are always super aggressive. So they have Aaron Donald, they have Jalen Ramsey, obviously, Matthew Stafford. You can throw in there Cooper Kupp. They lose Von Miller. They lose Andrew Whitworth. Like, so when they bring in a guy like Allen Robinson, like, sure, it looks great that they're bringing in this receiver who's had a great track record, even with a not great supporting cast of quarterbacks over the years. But it ignores the fact that the 49ers have that list of big names too. It's actually a longer list of big names, and it's guys that they brought in and developed. And I'm not sitting here, I'm not one of those people that's like the 49ers deserve more credit than the Rams for how they got their talent because they drafted. The Rams drafted a lot of really good players too. The point I'm making is that the 49ers have had success bringing in their own guys, and they do have a list of really good players. And it's just funny to me because a lot of the times those good players, it becomes it's people aren't as accepting, right? Like if you talk about Eric Armstead, for example. Like, I think Eric Armstead's a great player. I think he's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. I think he had a great season. There's a lot of people who've made it up in their mind that he's not a good player and he's overpaid. And no matter what facts you may present to them, they won't budge off of that point. So to them, instead of being like, okay, well, the 49ers have 5 or 6 really big names too that are impact players, they rationalize it as, oh, well, they have a couple good players and they have a bunch of guys taking up a bunch of money. And there's people complaining George Kittle makes too much money. There's people complaining Fred Warner. Like at the end of the day, if you want these big names, they're going to cost money. And believe it or not, the way the 49ers are going about it is much better because you're at least getting the formative early years of these players on a rookie scaled contract. And then you're paying them the big money rather than just waiting for big names to come and then paying them. And like very rarely do NFL contracts work out for the team in free agency in the long run.
No.
That's what everybody forgets, right, Andrew? Is that like at the end of the day, a lot of time, like sure, you might get a year or two of great production, but depending on the guaranteed money and how much stuff you're moving around, like there's a reason these guys are hitting the open market. Like the first question I always ask myself when I see a guy that's a name I like, that's a free agent, that's available, why weren't they tagged and why did their own team allow them to walk? And why isn't their own team keen on bringing them back? And there's always exceptions. It doesn't mean that every time free agent's available, they're not worth getting. But a lot of times, if you ask yourself those 3 questions, it might bring some clarity as to why the 49ers aren't throwing money at every big name that people like, you know.
And even to add to your point, and I want to add to Jamal's point too, is look at those names he listed. And he left one off with Kittle because Kittle's another one they drafted and developed. You look at those names, Fred Warner, 3rd round pick. Nick Bosa, fell into their lap, slam dunk pick. Deebo Samuel, 2nd round pick. Trey Lance, they had to trade up and get him. George Kittle, 5th round pick. Azeez Al-Shaair, undrafted. I guess we'll go with the Dre Greenlaw narrative. He was a 5th round pick. Jaquiski Tartt, I don't think he was a 1st round pick. The Niners are finding these really good players late in the draft. They haven't had to use great draft capital outside of Trey Lance, and they're able to find this talent. And then to your point about the free agency thing as well, like I saw a lot of people getting impatient with the Niners not doing anything the first few hours of free agency. Their first move wasn't until Charvarius Ward until about 9:30 that night. You notice how the only signings that happened outside, I think the Bills made 2 or 3 moves early on. You notice how all the big signings were like the Jaguars threw money at this guy. The Jaguars threw money at this guy. The Jets threw money at this guy. The Lions. You notice how it's the bad teams that are kind of throwing the money around early on. The Niners aren't at that point, man. The Niners don't need to, like, I got to word this very carefully. If you took the current 49ers roster as it is, throw a couple of draft picks, whoever you want to throw, that safety you like, Christian Watson, whoever they want to do, whatever it may be, and you say Jimmy Garoppolo is a starting quarterback, let's go scorched earth at this point, right? The San Francisco 49ers are a playoff team. And that's all you can ask for. I understand the fan base, wanting to be a Super Bowl caliber team and all that. More often than not, that's not how it works, right? If you look at the Super Bowl the past couple of years, and you gotta remove the Buccaneers and Chiefs because that's really a one-off situation. The Rams were probably a Super Bowl team before the season. The Bengals sure as hell weren't. And now I'm trying to show you guys my memory with listing Super Bowls in previous years, which I don't think I can. The Niners sure as hell weren't a Super Bowl team. The Niners weren't a Super Bowl team in 2021. Let's talk about it. And they were 1 win away from going to a Super Bowl, right? Like nobody was talking about them realistically being Super Bowl teams. So the Niners at this point, they don't need to do much. All these teams are trying to do is build a team good enough to get into the dance because you never know what happens when you get into the dance. Nobody had the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. Even at the start of the playoffs, nobody saw the Bengals against the Raiders and said, the Bengals, they're going to the Super Bowl. Nobody said that. So realistically, all the Niners need to do is just keep up with the status quo, put a talented enough roster together to where they can get to the playoffs, and then you just find out what happens because it's a one and done in the playoffs. Anything can happen. Ball can bounce one way. Ball can bounce another way. Your quarterback can only gain 3 yards in the fourth quarter. Things like that happen all the time. So yeah, just get in a position to make the playoffs. And I think the Niners are at that spot right now. Everything is fine in Santa Clara.
Absolutely. I do have to give a quick shout out because he's a busy man. He'll probably be gone. We have an actual celebrity in the comment section right now. So if you guys don't know Brad Graham at the SF Niners, literally Hollywood, A-list in the 49ers community. It's quite an honor to have him here. Peyton had a great point as well, that I need my own version of SDS. I believe it was my man JC who suggested. For those of you who don't know, my old Twitter handle was Splash Cousin, for obvious reasons. And he was saying that it should be the Splash Cousin. So maybe I'll do something like that. I don't have the same creativity Brad does, nor do I have the same glorious sourdough-like beard. So I'm going to have to get pretty creative with this. But something will be coming. I will definitely be cooking. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out to, it's not every day. This is like The Rock coming into your kitchen to eat dinner with you. This is a big time, This is like Denzel coming in and saying, "Hey man, can I buy you a drink?" This is Brad Graham in this comment section.
Can we talk about Brad Graham real quick? Just for
yes, anytime.
I said
never
this
need to
before
ask.
the show. Usually Wednesdays at about 2:00, Brad Graham goes live with Jason Aponte for a show they call the State of the Franchise. And Brad Graham today, Jason Aponte, as we said, he was busy today. He had some things to do. Brad Graham says, "Oh, I don't get Jason Aponte. I'm just gonna get Javon Kinlaw to join the pod. We're good. We'll be fine." Listen, Brad, we love you. There is no chance in hell that for the Sprint Ride Option podcast that Jason Aponte can't show up. I'm getting Javon Kinlaw. So shout out for that. That's huge, and I'm happy for him. I love Brad Graham. Huge fan of Brad Graham.
And that's just such a Brad thing to do, right? It's just oh, okay, Jason, you're going to big time me. Watch this. I'm going to upgrade you and bring in the 49ers starting nose tackle. Joke's on you, pal.
Yeah. You love to see it. It makes me happy, and I love to see it.
Oh man. So yeah. If there's ever any Brad Graham discussion, it's always welcome. This is a pro Brad Graham channel. This is a pro the SF Niners channel. So any praise is welcomed and any slander will not be tolerated. So just throwing that out there. Another thing I wanted to do too, because I don't know how much time I have Andrew for. This has been so fun. It's going by quick. If there's stuff that you guys wanted to ask Andrew or myself, or there's something you wanted to talk about, I wanted to give you guys some time to do that so that we're not just up here goofing. Because to be honest, I can sit here and talk with Andrew for hours about anything. Maybe we're talking Premier League. Maybe we're talking about the DH in the National League in baseball now. Who knows, man? So I want to give you guys a little bit of a chance to prevent us from going off the side of the road here and venturing into, unknown territory because, it's a lot of sports topics going on. Maybe we start talking about Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Hey, and I'll open it up. It doesn't have to be sports related. AMA, ask us anything. We'll talk.
Anything.
I told Jordan, my girlfriend's not here until 8:30. I could literally sit here until 8:30 and just shoot the shit with Jordan. That's just what it is. I remember when he said, "Hey, we're shooting for 45 minutes. We haven't even jumped off the Niners and we're at an hour." So I'm here.
I can do this real quick. I got into it. So I've wanted to do this forever, man. For anybody who doesn't know me or my background, sports has been my life, dude, for ever. It's been something that's driven me since I was a really, since I was a wee lad. It's been what's gotten me out of bed in the morning, right? And I didn't really, take a traditional path to get to, where I wasn't the most studious person in high school. I went to junior college for a little bit, and then I opted. I was making pretty good money with the job I was working, and at the time it seemed more alluring than sitting in general ed classes that I didn't really enjoy taking. So I don't have a journalism background. Again, I wasn't the most studious person. I didn't go to a big university. But what I did was I took a chance writing for some smaller outlets during COVID when I had a lot of free time. I actually started out writing about the Golden State Warriors. I can see if I can pull some of my original articles. Be fun to look back on after all these years. But I just took a chance, and that's the best thing I could tell anybody that wants to do something like this. If you would have told me 2 years ago when I was writing articles about how the Warriors won the Andrew Wiggins trade for a blog nobody was probably going to read, that I would be on the field at the NFL Combine within 2 years, I would have laughed in your face. But that's what's kind of cool about all of this, is that the only thing that really stops you is you, because a lot of this is going to be ultimately outside of your control. I hate to put it that way. A lot of this depends on other people being willing to take a chance on you, other people being willing to believe in you. Brad Graham's in the chat. Brad is somebody that, I didn't know Brad that well. In fact, the first time we ever interacted, he was in my mentions, cooking me because I made a joke about Mike McGlinchey that was like supposed to be sarcastic. Like I was making fun of the people who make fun of Mike McGlinchey, but my sarcasm was flawless. So Brad didn't know I was joking. And that evolved into quite the friendship where he's able to mentor me and teach me how to move in this industry. And that stuff would never happen if I just wasn't being myself. And that's the best thing I could tell any of you guys. Like, if you want to get into doing this, like, just be yourself. Like, At the end of the day, there's no guarantee it goes anywhere. But like, for me personally, like, just doing what I love doing and putting in, like, it's good. And the other thing I will add to is it's going to take a lot of time. Again, I've written tens, if not hundreds of thousands of words that probably barely anybody saw, that were for smaller outlets, that didn't get published, that people don't see, that aren't going to pop up on Google when you look it up. But that parlayed into a job for me where I now get paid by SB Nation, who gets great exposure and has great networking, are able to get me into events like the NFL Combine. So just be yourself and like, don't be afraid to like reach. Like, dude, if there's anything I could ever do, like, I'm still a nobody. I'm trying to find my way doing this. But if there's anything I can do to help out, whether it's you're starting a show like this, or you're writing something, or you want, like, I'm here. I try to be as much of a resource for people as possible, because that's how I've gotten to where I got to, is people being willing to give me their time and their, like, I don't say concern, but like, it's going to take some help. And there's a lot of people who are really great that are willing to help. So like, just don't be afraid to get in and start doing this. And like right now, I was hesitant to do this for a long time because I didn't really know. And after getting encouragement from people like Andrew and Brad and Jamal and all these great people, it made me say, hey, you know what? Like, let's have some fun with this. I don't know about you guys, it's been an hour. I'm having a fucking blast doing this. This has been a great time for me. So if you're thinking about doing this at all, just take that plunge and reach out to people like myself. I don't want to speak for Andrew, but he's one of the kindest human beings I've ever known. I would be shocked if he wasn't willing to help you out as well. And I'll pass it over to him, so I'm not just rambling on, but like, just give it a shot, man. If you want to get into doing this, reach out to a bunch of places and say, hey, are you looking for new writers? Hey, can I do video content for you? Hey, is there something I can do? I hate to put it this way, you're probably going to have to start out doing it and not getting paid. But like, the way I look at it, that's how a lot of internships start. And it, for me, turned into something where these things I was doing where I wasn't getting paid, I'm now monetized for, and I got the experience as well. So yeah, man, take that step. Don't be afraid. Don't let anybody ever tell you can't do this. There's a lot of weird gatekeeping doing this. Just ignore those people. There's a lot of like very strange gatekeeping in this line of work. Ignore those people. But sorry, go ahead, Andrew. I don't want to keep rambling.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And like, me too, like, same with my DMs are open on Twitter for a reason. If anybody has questions, or if anybody wants me to like hop onto a YouTube show, just shoot me a message. You could ask, no problem. Like, I will 100% do it. I was telling Jordan, I sit in this chair for 80% of my life, whether it's recording a podcast, whether it's playing Elden, or what's Elden Ring, the hot new game, Call of Duty, all that stuff. But for me, I started actually high school. I did all 4 years of journalism in high school. I was a sports writer. I wasn't very good at it. I just kind of did it to do it. I then go to a junior college like Jordan. I started as a business major. And then my dumb 19-year-old self didn't realize how much math there was being a business major, in case you're wondering what kind of college student I was. So I shifted over to communications, just kind of a generic thing. And that led to me getting into Sacramento State. And I did a beautiful thing called KSSU. It's the student-run radio station. I had a podcast, or not a podcast. I had a live radio show called the 14th Inning Stretch. I don't know why I started with that name. That's the name I picked. It was a once-a-week hourly radio show. And I love doing it, man. And it was cool. It was the only opportunity I ever really got to do live radio. But so I leave college, all that stuff, graduate, average GPA. I'm an average student, to say the least. And I started writing at KHDK, which is the local radio station here in Sacramento, which then turned into a great opportunity with Kyle Madsen and Niners Wire. I actually wrote for Niners Wire a little bit, part of the USA Today sports media group. And I love that. Like, I started writing about the Niners. Remember in 2018, before the Super Bowl year, the game in Tampa Bay where they got their asses handed to them. They got destroyed in that game. I started with that game, and I wrote up until about the playoffs in 2019, to where, because of California's AB5 law or whatever it was, they couldn't have contracted workers, so I wasn't able to do that anymore. So I took a break. I took a break from writing, and I started to do writing for Kyle Brekowitz. I don't want to mess up that last name. You know Kyle, 49ers Kyle. He's on Twitter. Did 49ers Noir. He wanted to do like a live radio thing. And in 2020, I actually did the first live radio thing at halftime. And I was like, no, I need somebody. I can't do this by myself. And you know, there's this other dude, a skinny, tall dude from Jersey. He said, hey, I'm interested in talking about the 49ers too. Do you want to start a podcast with each other? And I said, you know, sure, let's give it a try. And it started as the 49ers Noir live show, and it's developed into this beautiful, beautiful thing called the Sprint Right Option Podcast. So that's kind of the quick resume that you guys didn't need from me, but I gave it to you anyways. It's just kind of where it started to where it is now, and that's how I got here. I mean, really, if you're Jamal and to really anybody, I saw Dawson asking about, you know, content creator question, and what we can get into that too. It's really as easy as buying a microphone. It's really where it starts. Because that's all I did. I bought a microphone and said, hey, let's talk and we'll do this. So that's kind of where I am. That's how I started. That's how I got here. I've not like to be 1,000% honest. I have not loved every second of it, because there are moments where it's just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. This is a lot of work. It is a lot of work to get to this point where we're at. But you kind of got to push through those moments because it's very much worth the payoff.
Yeah, and if you notice too, like Andrew and I took very like different avenues to end up on the same screen as you at the same time right now, and writing for the same site at one point. Like the biggest thing is just, again, like believing in yourself. I think that's one thing that Andrew and I and like we both love doing this. Like that's the other thing I would add, is that like if you just want to like get in front of a microphone and do it as a hobby every once in a while, that's totally cool, man. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to like make it doing this, you're going to have to put in like a lot of time and effort behind the scenes that doesn't get seen. And I don't ever like, you know, I don't want to be sound like one of those like cliche, like, we're out here grinding, getting it out the mud, all that stuff. Cause I'm sarcastic when I say stuff like that, but it really is true. Like I'll give you guys a quick example. When I was in Indianapolis, Brad was there with me. Brad and I were literally sleeping for like 4 hours a night if we were lucky. And we were out there getting footage, asking questions, writing articles, and doing all that. And it was a great time. I had a fantastic time with these guys, with Jason and Brad and Rob. But like, it was tiring. I'm not going to lie, dude. When I got back off that plane, I was like, it took me like 3 days to get back to normal, because I was just completely like overwhelmed with all of it. So there's going to be a lot of stuff like that where it's like, sure, it's fun, but it's also like there's a lot of work that goes, like doing the joint practices in LA, dude. When I went down to the joint practices in LA, I'm there at like 8:30 in the morning on a humid afternoon after barely sleeping the night before, driving from the Bay Area to Costa Mesa to cover these joint practices. And like, yeah, sure, it was a great time, but I also had to like fight to stay awake, because I'm sitting here, sleep deprived, and like trying to keep track of how many pressures D Ford has and 11 on 11. Like there's a lot of this where it really is work, but I love it. Like I genuinely like have a great enthusiasm for this. So that's the thing, is that like, if you really love doing this, like never give up. Cause I'm not gonna lie, dude, there's been times where I've kind of been like, maybe it's time to, focus more back on, like, I used to work in sales, and I have a pretty extensive work history with a few different fields. And I'm like, maybe it's time to kind of drift back to that stuff. And I'm so glad I never gave up, because I feel like now more than ever, I still have, my dreams and my aspirations ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So again, I don't want to sound corny, man, or be like super cliche, but like really like believe in yourself and like follow your dreams, dude. And like, again, even if it's just like a hobby to like unwind, like there's so many fulfilling things. Like if I didn't get into 49ers content, I wouldn't know Andrew Pasquini. And honestly, knowing Andrew Pasquini is like that whole joke about maybe it's about the friends we made along the way. Like that stuff's really true, man. Like,
listen, man, the biggest thing I will take away from all of this is like honestly, like we could go as far back as, because we were both part of 49ers Gold Mine, and there's Angelina Martin and Steph Sanchez. But by the way, shout out Angelina Martin, NBC Sports Bay Area now. Shout out that
he's big time. She graduated.
The Luke Kecks, the Hugh Tomasellos, the Steph Sanchez's, which has developed into the like. One of my favorite things with this is I'm in a group chat with Jordan Elliott, with Brett Rumbeck, with Rich Madrid, with Javi Vega, with Jason Aponte, with Brad Graham. And not only to be able to just pick their mind about football whenever I can, like that's been my biggest thing, because like I'm 1,000% honest with you guys. I out of those names I just listed in that group chat, I am by far the least knowledgeable about football. And that's okay, because it's such a good support group that when I ask my dumb questions, I actually get real responses. And like especially from Rich, right? Like we know Rich is that grumpy Crumpet man on Twitter, right? But like that's not who he is. Yes, you're in a group chat, Brad. Just respond to the text, my guy.
Never. This man, he's Denzel, never. Dude. I'm telling you, he's literally Denzel.
But realistically, at the end of the day, if tomorrow the NFL announced that like we are ceasing operations, if the NFL doesn't exist, I got that group chat with friends. Like I don't just talk to Jordan because we both like the Niners. I don't talk to Jason, dude. Jason and I, we like what you guys don't see, like when we go off the air, is we talk about life and shit. Like we talk about everyday, day-to-day stuff. And so that's like, for me, like yes, as Jordan said, like the joke of like it's really about the friends we made. It really is. Like I'm gonna go to San Jose in 2 months for my girlfriend's best friend's wedding, and I'm 100% going to go out of my way and hang out with Jordan Elliott. And if he doesn't big time me, a Taylor Worth and people like that. And that's what I'm in it for, is I've made this core group of friends that I have met in person in real life once or twice. And it is a group of friends that I hope to have for the rest of my life. So I don't know how we got to this point, and we got a couple other great questions that we probably should get to, but that's the story of like Jordan and Andrew right there. Right.
Yeah, and this is hilarious to me too. That's so funny. Dude, Rich is the most misunderstood person on Twitter. That guy, I literally will text Rich at like 1:30 in the morning and send him an all 22 cut up and be like, hey man, like what's up with this concept? Is it like, if I have a question about something that needs clearing up, he's like the first person to come and help. And he'll do that for people he doesn't even know, but like he can be a little abrasive on the surface. So I understand why people feel that way.
We love it.
But I thought Dawson had a great question too. Which Bay Area sports team is winning a championship first? I mean, everybody wants to hear 49ers. Realistically, it might still be. I don't know, man. The Warriors, like it's Niners or the Warriors. I'm sorry. The Giants are frauds. The Giants are frauds. Giants are frauds, dude. I don't want to get.
I'll go Giants. Fuck it.
Frauds.
I'll go Giants. I'll go Giants just because. If we're really does Joey Chestnut count?
Joey Chestnut, I mean, if he does, like Joey Chestnut is the most like decorated Bay Area sports team in like history, dude.
Nah, I'll go Giants, because that's just how much I trust Farhan. I know a lot of people aren't happy with what Farhan's done this offseason, because there was a lot of bats they could have gone and gotten that they really chose not to. Getting Jock Peterson was fantastic. But what Farhan Zaidi has done the last 3 years with this franchise, why not, man? Why can't they? Like, they're not going to listen. They're not going to win 107 games this year. That was, and that's not even an indictment on the Giants. That's just winning 107 games in a baseball season is so damn hard. And you could just look at the Giants Dodgers series, and I could count on 2 hands how many games you could easily just flip, right? Like the Darren Ruff check swing, the Cody Bellinger bad throw, the play where Buster Posey gets safe first in the 13th inning. There were so many games like that within the Dodgers. Like the thing I'm worried about with the Giants is they could win 95 games and finish in second place in the NL West, and people will be like, well, they didn't win 107. What are we doing here? Where it was just as good. So I'll go Giants just because that's how much trust I have in Farhan. In the NFL, there's so much random stuff. Steve Kerr is a fraud if we're talking about frauds. The Warriors need Stephen Curry. Yeah, I said it. So the Warriors probably would have been my answer like 3 months ago. But a lot of things have changed. So
hey, no Steph, no Clay, no Draymond, and they're beating. I believe the Heat are still the 1 seed in the East, right? Aren't they?
Oh well, okay. Well, what you missed is the Warriors opened the second half on a 19-0 run, and Miami answered back with like a 32-4 run. So it just sounds, but it's 115-1. The Warriors are going to win now. But yeah, man, Giants. I'll go Giants.
And I'll be honest, my whole thing with the Giants being frauds is just kind of like The more I say that, the better they do. Like all last season, like Andrew's in a group chat that I'm in, where like all year, every time I said the Giants were frauds and were fake, they would end up winning. So like I'm kind of like trying to reverse jinx it into something. But to be honest, the Giants gave me a lifetime worth of fulfillment as a baseball fan in 2010. Everything past that was a bonus. So I'd really like to see, I know that wasn't the question, but if it was like my own preference, it would be awesome to see the 49ers win one for sure. But like right behind them is seeing the Sharks win a Stanley Cup. I know a lot of people don't really care about hockey. I live in San Jose. The Sharks mean a lot to the city. It'd be really cool to see. But yeah, just to be clear, Cody, I don't think they're actually frauds. In fact, I think if you gave Farhan Zaidi control of a football team, he probably would get a team in the playoffs. He could probably take like a bottom dwelling team and get him in the playoffs in 3 years. And he's not even like involved in that sport. That's how like
doesn't he win genius. Like the fantasy football?
Yeah, every year. Some people are just wired differently. And Farhan's one of those guys where he's just like, yeah, I would trust him with like anything. He's just one of those people where it's like, hey, dude, like my washing machine stopped working. Hey, Farhan, do you know how to fix this? And he would come over immediately in just five minutes. It's done. Like he's like one of those people. He's like a grown man version of Jimmy Neutron. This man has an answer for everything.
Well, I forget the exact. I'm on Wikipedia now. He has a bachelor, like just to kind of bounce off your point, right? According to his Wikipedia, he has a Bachelor of Science degree from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a PhD in economics from Berkeley. And he pretty much just read Moneyball, saw a posting for an operations position with the A's, sent out his resume, and he got it. And he just went from there. Like Farhan Zaidi, like whatever he wants to put his mind to, he probably could do. Like the dude can be an astrophysicist if he really wanted to. And thank God he decided to be like, nah, I'd rather just like sign Mike Yastrzemski and make him a 25 home run guy and just call it a day.
Can we add another thing too while we're on this topic? So Farhan Zaidi is a perfect example. I know it's not the same sport. I can talk baseball
all day, my guy.
Don't ever let people tell you that you can't talk about a sport because you didn't play it or you weren't a professional or NFL. Like, dude, you'd be shocked. You guys would be genuinely shocked at how many NFL players probably can't sit there and break down film and break down a playbook or their install or talk about huddle cadence. Like, just throwing it out there that just because you aren't an NFL player doesn't mean that you don't deserve to have a voice too. And there's a lot of people that'll throw that around, and it gets even laughable the farther down you go. Like, I'll give you guys a perfect example. I take great pride in my football knowledge. I'm always trying to get better. I never played organized. Dude, I played baseball and basketball. Like, those are the sports I played. And then I played cutting class when I got to high school. That was my sport that I lettered in. Don't do that. Any younger audience out there, don't follow my footsteps. Go to school. I'm just saying, if there was a Hall of Fame for cutting class, I would be first ballot. But aside from that, that's in the past. All right, we're having fun here. This is the lost tapes we'll come back to one day. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you don't get an opinion because that, like, I know people that like played like high school football that like will try and say that like, oh, if you didn't play the game, you won't understand. And to me, this is what it's like, right? Like, hey, I drive a car every day. I get on the freeway. Sometimes I go a little bit fast. Like I have driven a car, right? Does that mean that I'm qualified to talk about Formula One racing as if I'm a Formula One driver? Because the speed of Formula One is a lot different. You're driving a car in both instances. The point I'm making is that playing in the NFL and playing junior varsity football in high school aren't the same thing, and it's not comparable. And sure, there's things that maybe you can appreciate that somebody who hasn't played can't, but I just hate that there's a lot of people that feel like they get shut out of this. And especially when we're talking about like women in this space, right? Because they don't have women playing in the NFL, right? Like, it's not an avenue for them that currently exists. Does that mean that every woman should not get an opinion about NFL football? Absolutely not. And it's ridiculous that a lot of people take that mindset. So I just want to throw that out there to everybody. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you don't get a voice. As long as you're respectful and you put in the time, everybody deserves a seat at the table. And I will happily go off on any goofies out here that try to gatekeep and say that people don't deserve a right to an opinion about football, because this is for everybody, man. So I just want to throw that out there. It reminded me because the whole Farhan thing, because maybe he played when he was younger, but I know for a fact Farhan didn't play baseball at a high level. He's not a former MLB player. No. And he's arguably the brightest mind in this. He's probably the most coveted executive in the entire sport right now. So just throwing that out there. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Like, just because you didn't do it firsthand or you weren't a professional player. It's so dumb, man.
Hey, Jordan, Nicholas Soren Hogblom. I'm sorry if I'm messing that up. He has a great question. I'll be back so I can answer it. It's his most recent question. It's a good way to pivot to what we want to actually talk about.
This one? Is it this one?
Yes, it is. I'll be right back. You just
talk. I admittedly have a little bit of like uncertainty when it comes to Premier League specifically. My best friend is a diehard Liverpool fan and has been for a long time. Gets up at 4 a.m. to watch the games. Is like just like soccer is like the number one sport for him. So I have soft spot in my heart for Liverpool. I like watching them play. I think Mo Salah is the best player in the world currently, from my own casual observation. So if I had to pick a team in the Premier League, it's probably Liverpool, to be honest. But my favorite team is Dortmund. And just the entire vibe, like I got really into soccer back when they still had Hummels and they had Michael Royce was coming on. They had Aubameyang. Like I loved that Dortmund team and I loved their whole, their whole vibe. So if I had to pick one team, it's Dortmund. But if it's Premier League, like I like watching Liverpool play. I see Idris in the chat saying pick Arsenal. I'm not going to lie. The Arsenal fan TV is like some of the best sports content on earth. So I'm not opposed to Arsenal. I just don't really have like a dog in the fight when it comes to Premier League stuff. Like the most fun that I probably had watching Premier League was that year that like Leicester City went like on that amazing, like once in a lifetime
odds.
Yeah. Like that was awesome. And like Andrew's a Wolves fan, obviously, as you can see. So like I'm, I like them, but like I don't have it. I'll let Andrew take it over because he actually has a vested interest in Premier League. I don't. For me, it's just kind of like Liverpool when they play. But other than that, I'm kind of.
I have been a Wolverhampton Wanderer. I like to make the joke. I'm a lifelong Wolverhampton Wanderers fan since August of 2021. I randomly turned on my TV, saw Wolverhampton Wanderers playing against the Manchester United, or not the Manchester United. And I had previously because Jordan and I, we talked about the Euro Cup a month before in July with Italy winning that because we're both Italian soccer fans. And so I woke up that morning in August and nothing was really on. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I enjoyed watching the international tournament. So let's try Premier League. And so it was Wolves versus Manchester United. And Wolves had a player who's on the back of my jersey, Adama Traore. And I know the soccer or the football. I'm trying to work on calling it football. I'm trying to be that guy. I know the football fans here know who Adama Traore is. But the best way I could describe Adama Traore and the reason I kind of got into him is he looks like the prototypical dude in a Kyle Shanahan's offense who get like 6 yards a carry. He's bulky and he's the fastest guy on the field, and like kind of to a fault because he used his speed quite a bit to get down the field, but his soccer knowledge or his ability to like make crosses and shoot, he didn't get a single point with Wolves this whole season until they transferred him out to where's he at? Barcelona now. He's playing in La Liga now. And I instantly fell in love with Traore, and I just kind of started watching Wolves just for him. And then at some point in September, that's not true, Josh. The Ruben Neves is my guy now. September, October rolls around, and I just kind of started watching them, and I got to know the players. Wang Hee-chan, Ruben Neves. I love Ruben Neves. I'm a big Jose Sa fan. And I just really fell in love with it. It's fun to watch, and like, I'll tell you what, the Carabao Cup final a couple weeks ago. Now we're getting real. They were referencing the Carabao Cup. Liverpool against Chelsea. Man, that game was a 0-0 draw the whole way through. It went to PKs. It went 11 rounds of PKs. Might have been the most fun I've ever had watching a sport. Like one of the most fun sporting events I've watched up until a couple of weeks ago when Real Madrid finished the comeback against PSG. What a game that was. So yeah, dude, I've really dove headfirst into the Premier League and the football stuff. I've tried to watch the MLS a little bit just to be the US guy. Not as fun as the Premier League, but yeah, man, it's just fun. Like it's football is soccer. I'll say soccer because like it's weird with me being a Niner fan and then people know me for talking. Um, it's been fun to follow and it's really easy to watch. Like there's something to a sport, Jordan, where like you watch it, like you just know it's going to be 2 hours max. It makes it real easy to watch.
Yeah, man, that's how it was for me when I started getting more into hockey. Like I've always like enjoyed it, but once I started really getting into it more, the more I like appreciated that like it's something that may not be for everybody, but once you get into it, it can be a great time. And I know I want to create like this. Like this channel is obviously going to focus on 49er stuff.
Yes,
like I get
absolutely.
paid to write about the Niners. Andrew does a podcast on the Niners. Like, we're guys that are going to focus on the Niners when we do our work. But I made it Jordan Elliott Sports and not like 49ers directly, strictly related in the title because I want it to be about everything. So maybe Andrew and I have something if he's free where we could talk about Premier League and the Champions League as it's wrapping up and some of these international competitions. We got a World Cup next year. Like I'm, just throwing it out there that maybe, it seems like there's enough people that might be interested to watch that where we could do something like that and have you guys come on if you want, or, we could do stuff from the comments. So just throwing it out there. I know a lot of people don't really care for soccer or football as it's known.
We'll start the movement within 49ers Twitter.
Yeah,
we'll start the movement.
We'll start it. And if you want to come, great. And if not, that's totally cool. I respect that. And we'll keep it separate. We'll do something on the side where it's strictly, so you know what you're getting into. I don't want to be, hoodwinking people into thinking that it's 49ers talk and we're talking about Adama Traore, but here we are. This is all part of the maiden voyage. But yeah, I'm all for that. And like, we're going to be getting into the NBA playoffs pretty soon. I'm happy to talk about that kind of stuff. Baseball's ramping up. So I'm going to try to get videos out most days. I'm trying, again, the whole point of this channel is for me to get better talking into a microphone like this, looking into a camera like that, and getting better just doing this over and over again. And I feel like the more reps that I get in, the more I will be able to improve and find things to build on. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that old Sports Center commercial. It's Scott Van Pelt and Jimmy Rollins. And it's like, they're like watching film and it's like the Philly shortstop. And like Scott Van Pelt's like talking and he's like spinning in his chair. And he's like basically breaking down his film as like a Sports Center anchor. Like that kind of is like what I'm looking to do, where I can go back and watch these and be like, okay, well, maybe I am rambling about something too long. Maybe I am saying, or, just little things. So if talking about Champions League and Premier League can add to that, let's do it, dude. I'm all for that. Let's add it in. I know that there's a lot of great sports topics outside of just the 49ers. So if you guys, I don't know if you follow Andrew or myself on Twitter, but if you do, you can always DM me and, reach out and say, hey, what have you thought about doing a show about this? Even if it's for 20, 30 minutes, even if it's a 10-minute video, I am open to anything as long as it's not completely, just like goofy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how John Lynch should be ran out of town if I don't feel that way. But if it's like, hey, like, why aren't the 49ers front office doing this? Or why isn't, this player doing that? Like, if there's something, anything you want to talk about, like, send it to me and we'll make it happen, man. And I want to start getting people on. Oh, dude, I can't tell you how much fun I have watching film with Rich Madrid. It will literally, because Rich works nights and I work on my articles late at night. So it'll literally be like 1:30 in the morning and he'll just text me like, you up? Or he'll like call me and be like, what are you doing? And I'm just hanging out at home. Want to watch a film? Always say yes. Always. Like whatever those sayings are, where it's like, if somebody asks you this, you always say yes. Watching film with Rich Madrid is non-negotiable. Yes. Do it. No matter what. Maybe I can peer pressure him into doing some like open ones like he used to do like a year ago. But yeah, dude, I remember I rewatched one night, I rewatched the Super Bowl, the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl with Rich at like 2:30 in the morning. And we're just literally sitting there. I'm in my office, like sitting there, like watching Vita Vea like destroy the Chiefs offensive line with Rich. And it was like some of the like best time I've ever had, man. And so yeah, we'll do that. Yes, Josh, we are. There's a picture floating around. I heard rumor of Andrew and I in full Sharks gear with Tyler Hall as well. Shout out to Tyler.
We love Tyler. Big Tyler guy.
Big Sharks fans. They aren't very good right now, and that is okay because I still love them.
I saw they just got a goalie.
They did. Wild. They got a goalie from the Wild, and they have William Eklund, who's going to be a superstar when he comes back from Sweden. they just extended hurdle. Like, there's a lot to get excited about. It just
8
sucks. So, like,
years.
this is the thing. So 49ers fans, we'll tie this into some 49ers talk. 49ers fans want to talk about getting to, like, the top of the hill but not getting over it. The Sharks, literally, for like 15 years, every year, it was like, all right, this is finally it. This is finally going to be the time. This is the year they finally win. I can't experience that pain as a 49ers fan because all of that joy was already ripped out of me as a Sharks fan growing up. Every year they did that. So imagine the 49ers lost in this NFC Championship game, but happening pretty much every year for 15 seasons. Mm-hmm. Like, they literally were up. They were literally up 3-0 against the Los Angeles Kings, and they lost that series.
Well, can I make it even worse?
Yeah.
The 1 seed San Jose Sharks against the 8 seeded Los Angeles Kings, 3-0, and the Kings go on to win the Stanley Cup that year.
So yes, but
rip that bandage.
If you want to get, like, it's like that scene. You guys remember that scene in Happy Gilmore where he, like, walks into the batting cage and he just, like, stands there while the baseballs are, like, hitting him in the chest. If you want to, like, get that same, if you want to get that level of, like, callous built up as a sports fan, start watching the San Jose Sharks, because I promise you, like, it's what's going to happen is they're going to go through this nice little rebuild. They're going to get some good players. They're going to look like they're back in 3 years, and they're going to do the same shit over again for the next 15 seasons. I can't wait personally, because I'm not going to lie. If you guys have never been to a Sharks game, or a hockey game, sorry. If you've ever been to a hockey game, okay, Andrew, you're definitely going to come with me before the season's over. Hockey games, especially if you ever have the chance to go to a playoff hockey game, dude, I've been to NFC Championship games. I've been to MLB playoff games. I've been to the NBA playoffs at Oracle. I've experienced some loud dude, there is nothing like overtime in a Stanley Cup playoff game. And dude, I'm telling you, these Canadians, they don't play when it comes to hockey. They are very, very serious when it comes to playoff hockey. So if you ever have the chance to watch a game in Canada, for whatever, if you ever find yourself in Canada in the month of May or June, spend the money, go watch it. It is electric. It is a sport. Even if you don't even, like, this is the thing I tell people too. I like, dude, so, like, my own girlfriend, like, doesn't watch hockey. She literally only watches football. That's all she cares about. And that's totally cool. I respect that. I took her to a Sharks game and she's like, oh my God, they're like beating each other up and, like, slamming each other into the boards and skating around. And I'm like, yeah, like, it's a fun sport. Like, it's like kind of like when you watch on TV, you don't get the full scope of it. But when you see it in person, dude, it's like even people that, like, don't like hockey go and they're like, oh my God, when's the next time you're going to a game? Can I come? So anybody that I can get on the wave, join hockey. And I have another answer for Nicholas. I have to say Erik Karlsson because, I have to say Erik Karlsson, but William Eklund is going to be a superstar, and my answer will change very soon to William Eklund once he is on the ice repeatedly for the Sharks, because I was a little bummed that he went back to the SHL, but I think he's going to be a star. I think he is super special, and there's a lot of people who know way more about hockey than I do that really like him, that think he's going to be good. So I would definitely say that.
I would say Erik Karlsson, because I think, like, I'm not big into hockey. I watch when the Sharks are good, kind of like I am with the NBA. Like, I'll watch the Warriors when they're good and all that stuff. Erik Karlsson, just because he's the only one that comes off the top of my head. My favorite hockey player of all time, not Swede, but I'm a big Evgeny Nabokov guy.
Oh, me too, dude. He was one of my favorites ever. I do have to give a shout out to Jesus while he's here, because I believe he was the 3rd subscription on the channel. So, you know who else was picked 3rd was Mr. Trey Lance. Jesus, you are the Trey Lance of the Jordan Elliott Sports YouTube channel. So
we're gonna have somebody who's overpaid start over you for 2 years. So Jesus, congratulations, you've done
it. Oh man.
Can I feed off something you said real quick earlier too?
Please, the floor is yours.
Just real quick to feed off of what Jordan said. Like, my DMs are open as well too. Shoot me a message. I will literally do anything. Like, not like that. But like if you guys need me on a pod, you guys have a YouTube channel, anything like that. If you have any questions on anything, not even sports related, man. If you just need somebody to talk to, like, my DMs be open. I like video games. I like wrestling. I like sports. I like a lot of things. So, like, don't ever be afraid to reach out. That's all I really wanted. Now we can talk about Peter Forsberg and all that.
I believe Philip Forsberg is George Kittle's favorite player, if I'm not mistaken. I know George Kittle is a big Nashville Predators guy. He shows up and supports the cause. That's something that he has in common with Andrew, Carrie Underwood.
Ooh, I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. Oh man, what a song that is! What a way to start off Sunday Night Football that is. Every Sunday.
Yes, Dawson, you should. And everybody, if you haven't seen, Dawson has a channel. I'll try to link it in the comments or something. I'm new to doing this. Dawson does great stuff for not only the 49ers, but if you happen to be an LSU Tigers fan as well, he does phenomenal content for them. I love watching his videos, and he's very good about getting them out in a timely manner. So if news happens, you can always go to him for quick reaction. Excuse me. So I will try to find the link to his video and put it in the comments or something. But I just wanted to give Dawson a shout because he's really good at what he does. And yes, Dawson, you should invest in StreamYard, invest in all of that. Go live. I will watch your stuff. I will share your stuff.
I'll join you.
Yes, I would love to come on. Yes, dude, he's just insane. He had this pass the other night to Hurdle, didn't finish it, but it would have been the goal of the year in the entire league. And EK still is just, I think he's a guy that is very misunderstood by a lot of Sharks fans because he got paid a lot of money right as the team started to kind of crater. And I think that they forget that like if he doesn't get hurt in 2019, the Sharks probably win the Stanley Cup. And I hate saying that because it feels like there's 10 different times in my life where I'm like, oh, if this didn't happen, the Sharks would have probably won the Stanley Cup. But yeah, Eric Carlson's special, dude.
A lot of those.
Oh man, I can't thank you enough, dude. Jamal, again, last night I was scrolling Twitter, and if you guys don't know, I know a lot of everybody's kind of connected in this community. Our friend JC, he's very good when he gets on the mic. He's a lyricist. He is a poet. He is a wordsmith. And I was scrolling. I always see Jamal in these comment sections when I do Brad's lives, Jason's lives, with Andrew, with Rob.
Jamal is frequently in
everybody
after podcast.
He's supporting everybody. And I'm scrolling on Twitter last night, and I see him when JC's doing his rapping stuff, and Jamal's there supporting him. So he's somebody that I genuinely wish nothing but the best for, because he's somebody that's always pouring out love and giving it to other people. And that makes me very happy to see. So I just think that it's really cool that there's a great community of people that are, in the comments, watching this 49er stuff, consuming this content, making this content. And Jamal is destined for great things in this field. So if you guys haven't checked out his stuff, definitely do that. Definitely give my guy a follow on Twitter as well. Chardell makes a great point. Sorry, Chardell, that Carrie was married to, I can't believe I'm blanking on the dude's name.
We can Google this.
Oh my God, dude. I should know this off the top of I should know this off the top of my head, dude, because he's been there forever. Like, he's literally been there forever. God, I feel
Mike
so stupid.
Fisher.
Yes.
I was going to say
so,
Subban, but I don't think he plays in Nashville anymore.
Chardell beat you. I'm giving the point to Chardell. Sorry, Andrew.
Oh, it's okay. I had to Google it anyways.
So we've devolved from Premier League to hockey and stuff. If you guys do have any other 49ers questions too, I'm happy to answer those while we're still here before this, just because, like I said, Andrew and I will goof off and talk about anything. We'll end up talking about curling or,
WWE,
ping pong, WWE, the Attitude Era. I mean, I'm just saying, man, there's no bounds to where this channel will go when we're talking about sports. I'm trying to be the ESPN 8, the Ocho of YouTube channels, where we're talking about the sports that you guys want to hear about, even if it's something you've never heard of.
Dive and dodge.
I think we'd be great. We'd be great dodgeball now. Just be.
Oh man, wait until how shocked they are when you get Jason Aponte here, and you guys, everybody's here like, oh my God, this is going to be such a fire episode talking about the 49ers, and it's just an hour and a half of you guys quoting Curb and
literally just Anchorman quotes in rich voice.
Or have you guys moved on to Anchorman and no longer doing Curb?
Oh yeah, we're that's the move right now. Yeah, Anchorman is what's in right now. So if you guys want to get in on it, any Anchorman quotes and stuff, 49ers Gab, if you guys don't know, he has been killing it with the Anchorman references. That's the move right now. So Dawson has a question. We're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes. So I'll take the question from Dawson. We'll both answer. And then if there's any other 49er stuff you guys have, we'll crank it out in the next few minutes. But I also don't want this to drag on into something that, where you guys are just kind of like, all right, this is just Andrew and Jordan having like a conversation where they're like they would be having off camera, just goofing around.
Hey,
Because it will turn into that. I promise you, it absolutely will.
100%. It hasn't. It's been there already. We've kind of
Yeah.
into it already.
Yeah, we've given you a taste of what it's like. So Andrew, I'll let you start. Do you have any opinion on what the worst deal in free agency has been?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I like to be like a glass half full kind of guy with a lot of free agency stuff. Like I try and understand, and I hate that he took away the Jaguars from me. God, worst free agents. Do you have one off the top of your head? Because I don't want to sit here and think. I haven't thought about this, to be honest.
If we're talking worst, like it's hard because like the reason why I say it's hard is because I don't want to say that and then this player ends up and goes and has a great season. Like there's none off the top of my head. Like the first one I would have thought of, I wasn't a big fan of the Christian Kirk deal. Like I don't think that receivers were Jacksonville's problem. I think DJ Chark and Marvin Jones were perfectly fine. I think that it was more of a scheme problem and the fact that they had a young quarterback. But I also like, man, that's hard.
It's a hard one, right? Because like we can't use the Jags. That makes it tough. I see somebody say Von Miller, but like the way that contract works, like it's pretty much a 3-year deal. Like that's the thing with these NFL contracts. You can't look at the 6-year 120 and judge it when the cap hit. The highest it'll get the next 3 years is 21 million, which not too. It's 5 million this year. Go ahead.
I do have one. Let's honor Jason Aponte on his special day, which isn't his special day. It's actually Averly's special day, but we'll go ahead and honor him. Brian Anger getting $3.5 million a year to punt for the Dallas Cowboys will be what I will go with.
We'll go that. I'll go. Oh man, that's a hard one. I don't know, man. I don't think these things in the worst one. I'll go Raheem Mostert in Miami because I really wanted him back in San Francisco. I'll just opt out that way because he's going to do really well. I really wanted him. The Watson extension, if that counts, that's an interesting because I like 230 million guaranteed. That's not a small amount of money. That's going to be very hard to match. I like Ray McLeod. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think that's a bad signing because he addresses a couple needs for the Niners. I know there's the drops issue and the turnover issue, but in theory that if he plays like he's shown he can, he fills the slot receiver spot for the Niners. I'm assuming you mean Ray McLeod. I don't know how many other Rays there are, to be honest. Ray Armstrong. I like Ray McLeod because the Niners need a return man in the worst way. And I'll go even as far as say like slot receiver, something they needed. You know what? No. I will say Chase Edmonds, because if they were just going to go after Raheem Mostert, I know he gets hurt a lot. It really confuses me that they're kind of doing it. I know Mike McDaniel likes to run game and all that stuff. So I'll say Chase Edmonds because you went out and got maybe a better running back in Raheem Mostert if he could stay healthy. So I'll go that just because he's going to do great in Miami. Edmonds is, but I'll just say that because I don't understand the idea of drafting 2 running backs. I don't understand the idea of signing 2 running backs, especially in today's NFL.
I agree. And Nicholas has another good question. There are a couple centers who I like. I really like Donovan West out of Arizona State. He's a guy I think realistically could be there when they pick in the 3rd round at 93. The other guy that I really like is Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. I think that his athleticism is off the charts, and I think with a little bit of seasoning, he could get better. I don't like those are the guys I think they could target as a center, right? I don't think that they necessarily would have to play guard. I think Dan Brunskill and Aaron Banks would be a formidable duo, barring any catastrophic change or injury or something like that. I would be perfectly okay going into next season with both of those guys starting. And I just feel more comfortable. Like I know a lot of people aren't huge and big Dan Brunskill fans, but he's good for what his cap hit is and what he's asked to do. He's a good player in my opinion. And I think he gives them at least a viable he gives them a solid floor, right? He gives them a viable starter that you can put at that position where, hey, he may not be top 5 or 10 at the position, but he's somebody that you can count on and depend on. So those would be the 2 guys that I would watch for who I really like, Cam Jurgens and Donovan West.
I will be fully honest, and I don't have an answer because I really haven't dove into the draft much yet. I probably should do that. I like just full hand up. It's been really tough for me to get into the Niners draft simply based off the fact they don't have a first round pick, and that's just me being honest. I don't know much. I probably should at some point because I'm assuming at some point, Jason Aponte and I will probably talk about the draft, but that's when I'll just cop out and say, hey, Jordan Elliott and Brad Graham, you guys want to come on to the podcast and talk about the draft? Because I know you know way more than me. So that's my answers. I don't know. The Boston College guy. Everybody likes the Boston College guy. Is there a Boston College guy?
Lindstrom. Yeah, Lindstrom. Alec
Boom.
Lindstrom. A lot of
61st pick. Take Lindstrom. I don't think he'll be there at 61, but there you go.
Hey, if Joe Staley likes Jurgens, I feel pretty good about because we got to see him up close at the combine and he was moving really well. So if Joe Staley likes him, that's a dub in my book. I trust Joe Staley's evaluations far more than my own. So it makes me feel better.
He was a pretty good offensive lineman in the NFL.
He was pretty good, but I would say his sense of humor was his most valuable trait. Big guys are a dime a dozen, but that kind of sense of humor is generational.
Probably why he works well on NBC Sports. Co-worker with Angelina Martin.
Shout out Angelina Martin. Go run up those numbers, guys, on NBC Sports Bay Area. Every time you see an update about Moses Moody, know that Angie Martin is the wizard behind the keyboard pumping out that content for you.
Yeah, dude, we love Angie. We are Angie Martin stans.
I want Bryce Callahan. I think he's the best fit, and I think the fact that Denver, like how poetic would it be if Denver got K'Wan Williams and the 49ers got Bryce Callahan, where it's essentially a trade, but you're not giving up draft compensation on either side. I think that'd be pretty neat. I think it'd be pretty cool. What do you think, Andrew?
I'll give the answer that 49ers Twitter really wants just to play that game. Kick Mosley inside, sign Stephon Gilmore, run it back. Let's go. Like just do that. That'll be my answer. Just to give the people what they want. You could isolate that part. You could like leave this part out where I'm just saying I'll give them what they want and say Andrew Pasquini said sign Stephon Gilmore.
It's going to be the headline of this video when I go back and post this later. So I'm going to clickbait with Andrew's statement there.
It'll be like a 4-second video where you just isolate that audio. Nothing else around it.
Real quick, I think they need to get a veteran. I said this yesterday. Like I see people float out this idea, right? That they should kick Mosley inside in sub packages and then bring on Ambry Thomas. The Niners were facing 3 or more wide receiver sets 76% of the time last year, or 70%. It was more than 75% of the time. So 3 out of every 4 snaps, they're going up against an offensive formation where you probably are going to want to be in at least 5 defensive back formation yourself on defense. So basically meaning that nickel and sub packages are pretty much base defenses in the NFL now. So that starting slot corner role primary slot corner, however you want to word it, is basically a starting position in the modern NFL. So to me, you'd be much better off. Like if you're going to make Mosley the slot corner, just make him the slot corner and have that be the sole thing he focuses on. Don't have him kick in and out. Like, yes, versatility is great. Yes, it's good to have guys that are flexible. You can move around. Don't play with the secondary. You were able to, go out there and sink some assets into getting a guy like Travarius Ward. Don't play around and do this flexibility. Like don't do this Farhan platoon system in the secondary. I don't want to see it. I admittedly don't think that I've seen enough from Ambry Thomas where I would feel comfortable just standing pat right now, feeling like he's going to take this monumental leap forward. I also haven't seen enough where I think he's a bust, and I don't think he's good. Like, I'm not saying that in the slightest. No. I just haven't seen enough where I'm like, okay, like this guy's going to take such a monumental leap that I'm going to feel comfortable leaving on the outside. Because here's the thing. Everybody says, oh, just kick Mosley inside and have Thomas go to the outside, and it's like solves all their problems. Well, guess what? Then teams are going to continue to pick on Ambry Thomas on the outside, and what has really changed? Like we're still in the same boat we were in last time. So from what I saw in limited action from guys who are rookies who have room to get better, as no player is a finished product as a rookie, but if we're basing this just off of what we've able to, to see, I would not hesitate to continue to invest in the corner position, whether that's free agency or draft. I don't think you can ever have too many good corners. And then at that point, your worst case scenario is that Thomas and Lenore do pan out and the guys you bring in did pan out. And then you have too many good cornerbacks, which is never really an actual problem in the NFL. Like if anything, your biggest issue is figuring out which team to trade a guy to get back compensation in return. So I'm more in line with this. Like, I think Thomas is a guy, who has great traits, who can still develop. And hey, maybe halfway through that season, he seizes that job. I don't think that it's a wise business move to go in having him be slotted into that role right now. And again, I have to reiterate, I say that based on what we saw in limited action from a guy that was coming off of a year where he didn't play the year before because of COVID. And, there's an adjustment period. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. And maybe it's going to take him a little bit longer based on that to acclimate to the NFL level. And I just think it's better risk management to have a veteran option in Pease. Like, it's better to have a veteran guy you bring in during free agency, and Ambry Thomas is so good that he surpasses them and jumps them on the depth chart than counting on a guy in his second year who didn't really get that much time in his rookie year. And then it ends up being a disaster. And you have 49ers fans on Twitter every week complaining about the secondary again. Like, that's
just going to happen. That's just going to happen. 49ers Twitter will find a way to complain about things. It's just the circle of life, Jordan. You're good at this. You know your shit. I like it.
Try to. Thank you, Quarantine. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for coming in. I know Justin had a good question. So there's a really interesting guy. Jojo Demand from Nebraska is technically a linebacker, but he played the majority of his snaps as like a slot corner, kind of in this weird like no man's land where you're like not a full-time linebacker and you're also not a full-time DB. I think that he's a guy that I look at that's really interesting. I like Zion McCollum a lot too, out of Sam Houston State. He's a guy I was up till like 3 a.m. last night mock drafting a bunch. So I do like him. Realistically, I think that there's a few guys that you could not necessarily take in the draft. Like, I'm drafting this guy to be a slot corner, but somebody that you can take and then mold after. But like, I'm drafting a guy based on traits to play the position in its entirety rather than just specific. But if we are talking specific, Demand is probably the guy that I look at the most where I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. Because again, he's like technically a linebacker, but he played like a slot corner role. So it'll be really interesting to see how he gets used at the next level. I want to give a quick shout out to Nicholas too. Have a good night. Thank you for coming to the initial stream, and thank you for spearheading the transition into Premier League, Champions League.
We were waiting. We were figuring out a way to get.
We were waiting for the cue. Yeah. So thank you. You allowed Andrew to get into his Wanderers jersey, and I just think that that's awesome. So thank you for that, and you let us talk about Eric Carlson, which is very near and dear to my heart. So thank you so much.
Good night, Nicholas. Sleep tight.
I know there was something else. Let's see. Yeah, Jamal has a good point. I think it would be great if Thomas develops. This is my whole thing. And again, it's a small sample size, but is that enough for them to feel good? Because this is the thing. The 49ers may have seen stuff in practice. I think Ambry Thomas's traits are off the charts. He's fast. He has good length. He has good size. He's fluid. Like, he has great physical ability. Did they see enough behind the scenes that makes them feel comfortable going forward? Hey, if they do, I believe that they deserve the benefit of the doubt. And they invested a 3rd-round pick in that compensatory range where I have been mocking corners to them this year. So it's kind of, draft classes aren't the same year to year, but, if they invested that capital last year, you kind of have to have some conviction in your belief and let them see the field a little bit. So I think Jamal does make a great point there.
Yeah, and I think – I think the best case is you have Ambry Thomas develop into what he can, because he showed flashes, right? It was rough at the start and everybody wanted to call him a bust, and he ended up holding his own. I know he wasn't great in the NFC Championship game. That's a hard assignment, because you if you're not covering Cooper Kupp, you're covering Odell Beckham, and that's not easy. So yeah, I really think the best case is Ambry Thomas develops into what he is, and you run into the quote unquote problem that Jordan mentioned of having just too many good corners. I don't think it's a problem, because if you run into an issue where somebody gets injured, is you feel comfortable with who's stepping up, and because that was the issue with the Niners last year, is they really banked on Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley, and K1 Williams to stay healthy the whole season. And you just hope that they didn't get hurt. And unfortunately, Jason Verrett goes down with the ACL injury in week 1. And now you're really scrambling. So yeah, I think Niner fans should really want Ambry Thomas to develop into what they think he is.
I think so too. I wanted to give a quick shout out to 49er Minded. Thank you so much, dude. That means the world to me. If you guys aren't already following his page, he does great stuff as well. I know he also does some Twitter spaces as well late at night. So if you're up, and you want to hear what's going on with recent 49er stuff, he does fantastic work for 49er Minded. So definitely go give them a follow on Twitter as well as here on YouTube. So thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that. This one's interesting. I think that, with all due respect to Talanoa Hufanga, I think that Jamal Adams is a much better safety than he gets credit for, and I think that it's unfair to expect that that he can do. I think it's unfair to expect a lot of players to be able to do what Jamal Adams does. I just think there's a lot of me. I understand what you're saying, Dawson. Like I do think, yes, he's more suited towards a role where he's down in the box, less reliant on being left out in space. But I just, have to throw that out there because I know there's a lot of this, oh, Jamal Adams sucks, he can't cover. He's still a pretty good safety. Would I have traded 2 first-round picks from? Absolutely not. Would I have made him the highest paid safety in the league? Absolutely not. But he's still a good player. Like that, just because he got those things. Like the Seahawks organization being a little misguided with their process to get him and retain him doesn't make him any less of a player. If anything, it makes him, like, shout out to him and his representation. Like, he did a pretty good job finessing them. Sorry, I'll let you go ahead and answer too.
Yeah, no, I like Hufanga in the box. I don't like him in coverage. If he just sits as the hybrid linebacker and they don't rely on him too many snaps in games, I think Talanoa Hufanga can be a solid player because the effort's there. Like, he is definitely an 100% effort type of guy. If you're a 49ers fan right now and you think that Talanoa Hufanga can step in and just replace Jaquiski Tartt without a beat, which happened more so during the season. I don't see it as much anymore. I don't think that's something you can realistically expect because I just don't. That's not who he is. So if you can keep him to a limited snap guy and use him more in the box, I really like Talanoa Hufanga. If we try and expand his role too much, I probably like him a little less.
Yeah, and this is a great example of what, like, he's still making plays, man. A lot of people get on him for his, I think he was misused a little bit initially, but I still think he's a good player. This was a good question too. I know Andrew's got to get going pretty soon, so I don't want to, keep him too long. We're coming up on 2 hours, which is incredible. That whole time flies when you're having fun. It really has. I told Andrew when I started this, I'm like, oh, we'll keep this at 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It'll be quick. And
an hour and a half ago,
we should have known better. I think this is a great question. On surface quarantine, no, I don't. I think that Kyle is still, running the show. He's still the head honcho. He's the guy that's pulling all the strings. But I do think that they will kind of evolve in a way that, like, a lot of the innovation and creativity in the running game specifically was coming from Mike McDaniel. And I think that while they have a lot of that in their bag from all the years Kyle spent with him, like, there's going to be an adjustment. But I do really like Anthony Lynn coming in and, kind of being in charge of that running back room, being another voice as an assistant head coach, as somebody that's not only respected by players and peers, but also who has I wrote an article for Niners Nation about it. If you go back the last 20 years with Anthony Lynn, he's had 5 or 6 different stops. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but he had 5 or 6 different stops as a running backs coach or offensive coordinator. And every single place he went, he had a 1,000-yard rusher and or a top 5 rushing offense. So it's at a certain point, it's not just coincidence. And he did that in Cleveland when they were really bad. He did that for the Jets when he came in when they were pretty bad. It wasn't like he was going to a tailor-made situation kind of now where the 49ers are pretty, they're a team that's kind of set up for success. He did that he did it in Jacksonville. Fred Taylor had the best year of his career with Anthony Lynn. So yeah. Oh, dude, he's an all-time. And those jerseys were great. I cannot believe they got rid of the teal with the Jaguar on the sleeve right here. That all-time great jersey.
They had a pretty good, not to make it about the Jaguars, but going from Fred Taylor to Maurice Jones-Drew
to MJD, who I have to plug this as many times as I can. I got to meet and hang out with Maurice Jones-Drew in Indianapolis. What a cool guy. Let me just throw that out there. Down to earth, super nice. Hung out and talked. I thought it was just gonna be a quick. I'm just hey, dude, he's from Oakland, so I'm hey, MJD, I'm from the Bay too. Just want to come say what's up. Always been, big fan of yours when I was growing up. And we talked about, he's like, he talked about where I'm from. He's like, oh yeah, I know the area, like super approachable, really good guy. So MJD is not only a friend of the Bay Area, he's a friend of the channel. And I just wanted to plug that, for anybody who cares, if you were ever up late at night looking at the ceiling, wondering if Maurice Jones-Drew is a great guy, worry no more, because I can confirm for you, yes, he's in fact
I'm gonna sleep well tonight. I'll sleep well tonight.
Hey, I don't know if he's still in here. Andrew made a TikTok a few months ago, right, guys? And it was Heat Waves by Glass Animals with Jim Harbaugh. And it's so I saved the video. It's one of my favorite videos ever. And the other night at like 2 a.m, I posted a video of I have Andrew's TikTok, and it's like Jim Harbaugh with Heat Waves. If you've ever heard the song in the background. And the lyrics are like, it's like sometimes all I think about is you. Yeah, so
night in the middle of June, they didn't need that.
So I post it, and this dude Lalo on Twitter responds, and he goes, "Real men stay up at night thinking about Jim Harbaugh." And I don't know why that comment. It's the best. I've had tens of thousands of interactions on Twitter.
I didn't even see that. That was based off my TikTok. That's where that.
That's what I pulled up from. Yeah, it was from your TikTok. Yeah, dude. So. I just have to. I don't know why. Like I transitioned to that. I think the whole looking at the ceiling thing reminded me of it. But like that to me was like one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Where he's just like, real men stay up at night listening, or thinking about Jim Harbaugh.
I love Kyle Shanahan. I love him. Nothing against him when I say this. If the 49ers fire Shanahan for Jim Harbaugh tomorrow, I am happy. That's just how much I love Jim Harbaugh. I'm a Michigan fan because of Jim Harbaugh. When the rumors came out about the Raiders maybe being tied to Harbaugh, I was mentally preparing myself to buy a Raiders hat because I will go where Jim Harbaugh goes. So yeah, I absolutely have been at that spot at the 3 a.m. thing, like laying at my ceiling, just thinking about Jim Harbaugh and his sideways pinky. And you cannot tell me there's nothing more electric than getting excited for a Niner game, and every time Fox, you would see Harbaugh pounding on Alex Smith's shoulders, getting him ready. Jim Harbaugh, I feel bad for the Niner fans that are too young to remember the Jim Harbaugh days, because if you thought this Niner era was fun, the Jim Harbaugh era, that's what got me into the Niners so hard, because I like the Niners. I was always a Niner fan. But Jim Harbaugh shows up, and he doesn't just make the Niners a good football team. He makes them an NFC powerhouse. They went to 3 consecutive NFC championship games. I don't know what happened in the Super Bowls and all that stuff. I don't remember.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. The Jim Harbaugh, to me, man, I don't think there can be another era of 49ers football in my life that captures the magic of what the Jim Harbaugh era was. It was chaotic. It was fun. It was good. He's a grumpy old man. And to me, man, that's my number one interview. If I can ever interview Jim Harbaugh, I've peaked, and I'll probably announce my retirement the next day, because there's no way I'm topping that.
I got a John Harbaugh story from Indianapolis. Okay. Actually, it was a brief encounter, but Brad, Jason, and I were outside the media room, and we were just kind of it was early in the morning. We had been up super late the night before, working hard, playing harder, the vibes out there. And we were sitting down, and I had my laptop that I'm looking at right now, on my lap, sitting there typing. Brad's on his phone doing content. Jason's getting his stuff out. And, it kind of, we looked like a couple guys that had been kind of through the ringer a little bit. We'd been through the, it was a rough morning, and John Harbaugh is walking by, and he goes, "Hey fellas, you guys dug in over there, huh?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, just over here kind of cracking up." He's out here working, because he said something like, "Oh, yeah, keep it up, fellas, have a good one." But the look, it was so genuine, and I sat there and I'm like, there's something about these Harbaugh guys, man. They're just so
you buy
so
in.
Outgoing. You just buy in. Yeah, dude, I would have ran through a wall for the guy, and he said 5 words to me. But it was so funny how he's just walking by, and he sees us 3 random 49ers content guys, and he's like, "Oh, you fellas are dug in working hard, huh?" We're like, "Yeah, dude."
Jim Harbaugh, man. Jordan, we should have started the Jim Harbaugh talk 2 hours ago. We probably would have had just as much conversation.
Oh, dude, honestly, we could probably. I don't want to speak for Andrew, but he is a friend of the channel, and I hope to get him on as many times as possible. We might have to do a specific Jim Harbaugh episode, because there's some great stuff.
Reminiscing Jim Harbaugh.
I know 49er might have had a comment. I'll retweet the video, or I'll find it and I'll send it to you on Twitter, because it's hilarious, dude. I'll see if I can find the full one. It was really good work, dude. Like it was really good. I want to say what's up to Ellis really quick. I always appreciate his insight whenever I do lives with Brad. So Ellis, thank you for coming by to the maiden voyage of my channel. I really appreciate it, and it brings me tremendous joy to see you in the comments as well. Harris, you as well. Thank you for stopping by. And everybody else too. I'm trying to make the rounds and just voice my appreciation for all of you guys, and for Andrew for sticking with me for 2 hours. And I'm like, hey, dude, don't worry, it's 45 minutes. This will be fine. Here we are, 2 hours later. He's in his Wolves jersey. We're talking Jim Harbaugh.
Eric
you can't draw this
Carlson
stuff.
came up.
You can't draw this stuff.
Do we
up,
need
man.
to talk about Lewis Hamilton? Some Max
Verstappen? Hold on. I'm going to let Andrew riff on this one, Josh. Hold on. This is a question for Andrew Pasquini.
Oh yeah, no. That's my best friend. I've told him I have issues with Steve Kerr. He's memeing me at this point. Listen, man. My sister could have won a title with the Warriors teams he was handed. We're seeing a little bit of who he is when he doesn't have Stephen Curry. Not a big Steve Kerr guy, but that's okay. Eric Spoelstra better.
I mean, tonight, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Hey, we've missed a lot. Apparently, the Miami Heat are fighting on the bench.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler and Udonis Haslem are fighting because Jonathan Kuminga was just too much to handle.
Poole apparently, Jordan Poole went off tonight.
So funny story. So Andrew had me muted at one point because of my Warriors takes.
Had him muted.
I don't know what they were specifically, but they could have been. I did not like what I saw from Jordan Poole his rookie year, and I was just so accustomed to expecting a certain level of high IQ play from the Warriors that I was like, I don't see how this guy's going to fit in when they all get healthy. I thought his shot selection was bad. I thought that he was just not. He shot 28% from the field, or from three, and 33. It wasn't a good rookie season, but he was a rookie and he had plenty of room to grow. I was very outspoken that I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have I don't think Jordan Poole is going to be that great. I was so wrong. I can't believe how wrong I was. And again, I don't think if we isolate the rookie year, it totally makes sense. And this makes me feel better that I wasn't alone. So thank you for not making me feel like I was just some lone idiot by myself. But if somebody were to go and dig up my old Jordan Poole tweets, they would make me look very stupid. I'm not the smartest guy. I say stupid things from time to time. I own that. But dude, my Jordan Poole takes were blasphemous level of so I'm wondering if that's why Andrew blocked me, but I don't know. It's still a mystery.
I don't know, man. I like who I liked is James Michael McAdoo. Remember him? He was supposed to be decent. I was big on him. Yeah, man, Jordan Poole. It's kind of fun to see him doing his things. And
I will say one that I nailed was Kevon Looney, and I've been saying for years how good and important Looney is, and finally he's getting the love he deserves. I admittedly was a big Wiggins guy too, still am, but he's making it very hard. I went to a game in Denver a couple weeks ago when they beat the Nuggets when I was there visiting family with Steph Sanchez. Shout out the 49K pod. If you guys don't know Steph, she's great. Check out her work. And Wiggins just was I literally think I tweeted during that game. I'm like, I've never felt more betrayed in my entire life than I felt by Andrew Wiggins since the All-Star break. I've just been stabbed in the back by this man that I've been catching strays for years. And dude, that game against the Nuggets the other night, or not the Nuggets, sorry, the Spurs, when he makes that three, and it's I'm like, yes, here it is. I don't care how they're it's this big clutch three. Or no, sorry, that was the Magic game last night. All these bad games are running into each other. He hits that big three, and then Mo Bamba comes and hits a three, and it's just all for nothing. I'm sitting there well, fantastic, great, dude. But thank you, Jesus. Again, not to put this burden on you, but you're the Trey Lance of this channel, so you have to kind of accept it at this point. So just throwing that out there, you are the Trey Lance of the Jordan Elliott Sports channel.
Okay, Harris, can I push back a little bit? All he did was get Steph the ball more and run less isolation. So it's really like Kerr came in and just was hey, move the ball. Mark Jackson gave them the defensive mindset. And I like Steve Kerr, man. I think I'm just super grumpy about, and I hate to do this to Warriors fans. I just don't. I think I'm still angry at Steve Kerr for Festus Ezeli getting late game minutes in Game 7 of the 2016 Finals. and drawing that foul on LeBron, the 3-point shot foul. And I've never been a big fan of his rotations. I hate like he just doesn't to me have a great feel of the game. And like I've always hated the Stephen Curry like first what is it? I haven't watched the Warriors too much this year, but what is it? He plays the first quarter, 6 minutes into the second quarter, comes out for a bit. Like he never has that true feel of like, hey, the Warriors just allowed a 10-0 run. They're now down 3 with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but we're not bringing Steph back in yet because we're not at the 4-minute mark in the fourth quarter. I've never been a big fan of Kerr's rotations, but like I haven't watched enough of the Warriors recently to really like cement that idea anymore. But yeah, a lot of it stems definitely from that game 7 in 2016 against Cleveland. That definitely never happened.
I see. This is where I get caught in the middle because I definitely don't think Kerr is perfect, but I also think that he like just the motion offense that they put in and a lot of the changes that were made. Like, yes, there were some differences, but like Draymond, for example, like Draymond's role completely changing. Like Kerr having the vision to see the player Draymond was that Mark Jackson overlooked. Like that's where it's tough for me. I don't take anything. I think Mark Jackson. Like this is my whole thing, right? I think that the Warriors needed a guy like Kerr to get over the hill to that dynasty that they created. But I also think that they never even get put in that position without Mark Jackson teaching guys like Steph Curry. Like I think Mark Jackson got them to buy in defensively before Kerr took over. And I think that's so big because everybody gets so caught up. Everybody gets so caught up in Curry and when they had KD and Clay and all the scoring and shooting. But what really drove those Warriors runs was the defense and then them getting out in transition after they had these great stops on the defensive side in the half-court sets. So I do think Mark Jackson deserves a lot of credit for that. And that's something that I don't think gets talked about enough where like Mark Jackson really instilled in them how important playing defense is. But this is a great point too.
Mark Jackson had his points and all that. Like I get it. He put the defensive mindset, but the running joke that like me and a friend had when I worked at Sports Authority in Santa Rosa was like Mark Jackson got all this credit because like he was so good at the mic'd up moment. Like he's a really good speaker. I'll give him that. But like it was just so funny because like whenever they did the little mic'd up, it'd be Mark Jackson yelling like, we gotta feel the vibe of this song right now. We gotta get pumped. This is our song. And Mike Malone's in the corner, like drawing up the plays and shit. Like he's the one who was actually like the man. I mean, Mike Malone's a fantastic coach. And I'm very curious, like a very fun like butterfly effect thing. Like what if they pick Mike Malone after they get rid of Mark Jackson and see what happens and go from there? Because like Mike Malone's one of the better coaches. I mean, nothing against Steve Kerr, but Mike Malone's up there. So.
I think he's the guy that wants to be called Michael Malone, right? Like he takes that like very personally when
people Michael. Coach Nick Saban, Michael Malone, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, because I just wanted for your own, sanity to not be caught. Hey, I don't want you catching strays from Michael Malone. Denver.
I don't want to ruin any chance of the Splash Cousins Sports YouTube channel getting Michael Malone on the pod.
Hey, I mean he knows that it's This is a Nikola Jokic fan account.
We're big Nikola Jokic.
I like Porter Jr. too. I think he could be a good player. I like a lot of them, dude. I like Will Barton. Bones Highland too. I know we're just diving deeper into like random NBA time. Bones Highland is phenomenal. He was really fun to watch in person.
And so I live in Sacramento. I'm not a Kings fan, but like I know the Kings because I live here, and like that's the only thing to do in Sacramento is the Kings, and that's not even that fun to be honest. But like. You get Michael Malone and DeMarcus Cousins is buying into this system and the Kings are actually seeming like they're pretty good. And then DeMarcus Cousins, what did he got sick with something. And the Kings go on a slide in 9 games and they fire Michael Malone. And since then they've been the Sacramento Kings. So Michael Malone could have made the Kings a relevant team if he really wanted to.
Yeah, the Kings are just kind of like
oh my God! Listen, I don't want to start yelling about the Kings, but like when they traded for Buddy Hield and they got Jimmer Fredette, they were like, "Yeah, man, this is like the next Stephen Curry, the next Klay Thompson." And then when legitimately the next Stephen Curry or Klay Thompson and Luka Doncic is available at 3, and you guys pick the 17th big you guys have on your roster and Marvin Bagley, y'all deserve what you got right now because that's just how do you pick Marvin Bagley over Lou? Sorry, I got it.
I think that the Warriors would be
If I was the head coach, I'd just give the ball to Curry and we'd be 82-0 right
50,
now.
51 and 31.
51. That's all. I'll take that. That's what, a good 3 seed in the West.
That's
Hey, I'm doing better than the Lakers right now. That's all I care about.
He's gonna have some growing pains. Pasquini is, new to the scene, but he has heart and he has intangibles that you can't quantify. So I do think that Andrew would be a 50-win coach in his first year.
There we go. I think that's a great way to end it. Just calling Andrew a 51-win coach in the NBA.
I think so too. Is there anything else that you guys really quickly wanted to talk about before we go? Because I think we're coming up on like 2 hours 50 minutes. I know it's coming up on the time that Andrew had to get going.
I got to air fry some
want to
chicken.
get to? Yeah, I'm getting pretty hungry myself, but this has been super fun, and I'm gonna try to do more of these like random, spontaneous lives and random, just talking about sports, basketball, football, Premier League, hockey, like, I don't know, Kentucky Derby, whatever's happening. I don't care, man. If there's sports going on, you guys want to talk about it, I'm here for it. We'll have some fun doing it. So, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll just wrap this up with thank you guys for coming along. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this is the start of something really fun that we can look back on and be like, wow, remember that first night when we talked about Erik Karlsson and Adama Traore on a 49ers offseason video?
Oh,
and do it with a fond memory. So first of all, thank you to Andrew Pasquini for being here again. When I was like, I committed to doing this a couple days ago and I wanted to start. Andrew was the first person that I thought of to jump into this and have on my pilot episode, because to me, pilots in anything are going to set the tone for whatever you're laying out. And the vibe that I wanted to procure was one of, being fun, entertaining, but also lighthearted and not taking ourselves too seriously, having fun. That's what this is all about. And I could not think of a better person. So if you're not already following Andrew and you're not already subscribed and liked on the Sprint Right Option pod, please do so, because he is a tremendous, tremendous follow when it comes to sports content. And he is an even better friend. So thank you, Andrew, for joining me. I just have to shout you out. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
It means the world that you picked me first. I'm happy to help set this ship a sail. The sky is the limit for Jordan Elliott. So for those of you guys who are here right now, you're pretty much witnessing the rookie card of a Jordan Elliott right now, and it's going to be a high value card. It's going to be an honest Wagner type value card. So please subscribe to this channel, because it means the world that I was the first one here. And I love you, Jordan. Very good friend, very good follow. You could follow him on Twitter if you haven't already. I want to say at Splash Cousins. Actually, if you make the comment go away, they could see our ads. He is at J. Lee Elliott. You can follow me on Twitter as well, at Pasquini Andrew. I have a little podcast called the Sprint Right Option Podcast. It's with one Jason Aponte. I've been told that people watch the podcast for me. I don't know how accurate it is. I am the entertaining one out of the two.
I do. I can say that. I do.
But no, for real. Jason Aponte is a great human being, and I hope he's having a great day. But so if you're trying to find me for whatever reason, that's where you can find me on Twitter, at Pasquini Andrew, and the Sprint Right Option Podcast. We record once or twice a week. I don't know when we're recording next, but if I'll find out, I'll tell you guys. So thank you, Jordan. It means the world that you had me on today.
Oh, this was a ton of fun. And I want to say thank you to Harris, Shardall, Ellis, Dawson, 49er Minded. I know Chris is in here. Jamal's been in here. Josh has been in here. Dawson's been in here. Everybody else that's been in here along the way too. I know there's been quite a few people coming to go, and Justin's been in here. So Jesus, the Trey Lance of the channel, that's definitely something he has lofty expectations. I would not envy being in his shoes right now. It's been fun, man. So I'm probably going to do something again in the next couple of days. We'll see. Maybe the Niners make a big move and I can do something about it. Maybe, Jonathan Kuminga scores 50 points in a couple of days. And I don't know, man. So like I said, I'll if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see, I'll try to post about it. And again, this is just kind of me feeling out this process at the beginning and me figuring out how I'm going to navigate this channel and go about the content and stuff. So for the beginning, it might not be the most structured thing, but that might not be the worst thing either. We could have a lot of fun. I'm going to try to do my best to incorporate whatever's going on in the comments, so you guys are involved and are a part of this as well, because without you guys, I would just be talking to thin air. So thank you guys. This was a ton of fun. Like I said, we're at past 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I don't have a cool send off yet, and I don't have any graphics or anything. So it's just going to cut out. So just know I am very appreciative. I love you all very much. And thank you so much for coming to the first episode of whatever this channel will be named in the future. So have a good night, you guys. And thank you to Andrew again.
You're welcome. Love you.